Chapter 3948. Zhuowen smiled slightly. He knew that Ma Yujie had already expressed his stance. As for the bullsh *t that this guy said about being friends, he completely ignored it. Then you and I will kill these 3 people together. Zhuowen said. Of course. Ma Yujie agreed readily. He knew how terrifying a rank 5 astral weapon was. Although Zhuowen's realm was not high, with the help of the rank 5 astral weapon, his strength surpassed Run Xiaoyao's. He had fought with Zhuowen many times and knew that this guy was a heaven-defying existence. In addition, Zhuowen also had the primordial stone. He didn't want to be enemies with Zhuowen. It was too strenuous. Rin Xiaoyao's face turned pale. Ma Yujie had a rank 5 astral weapon, which was already very troublesome for him. In addition, Zhuowen also had a rank 5 astral weapon. How could they fight? Wait, let's give up the Heart of Stars and retreat. Rin Xiaoyao hurriedly said. Too late. Zhuowen sneered. He stomped his right foot and blocked Rin Xiaoyao's retreat. The purple gold sword embryo flickered with a blazing golden light. Sword chi surrounded Zhuowen's body, making him look like a god. Ma Yujie twisted his fat body. The red bracelet emitted a blazing red light like an inextinguishable flame, shining brightly at the bottom of the pool. Rin Xiaoyao and the old man's faces turned green. They never thought that things would turn out like this. Kill! Zhuowen's eyes burst with killing intent. Like 2 terrifying killing swords, he rushed toward Rin Xiaoyao and the old man. The purple gold sword embryo was like a golden lightning bolt, rushing toward Rin Xiaoyao and the old man. Ma Yujie chuckled and rushed over from the front. The red bracelet emitted a terrifying red light, like an inextinguishable flame, surging and sweeping over. Rin Xiaoyao shouted, took out the bronze cauldron, and rushed toward Zhuowen. He knew that he could only give it his all. Otherwise, he would be killed by the 2 of them. Elder Lin, you go and deal with that fatty. You must hold him back. After I kill him, I'll come and help you. Rin Xiaoyao sent a message to the old man before he rushed out. The old man's face was pale. He did not have a powerful astral weapon on him. Wasn't it the same as sending him to his death to deal with Ma Yujie? However, the old man also knew that he had no other choice. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He silently watched Rin Xiaoyao rush over. He pointed the sword in his right hand forward. Suddenly, the purple gold sword embryo buzzed and turned into a golden lightning bolt, flying toward Rin Xiaoyao. Rin Xiaoyao's pupils constricted slightly. He took out the bronze cauldron and placed it in front of him. Thousands of green rays of light rushed out, and the sound of bells and cauldrons rang out. Bang! The purple gold sword embryo slashed at the bronze cauldron, and a terrifying sword chi swept out like a storm, forcing the bronze cauldron to retreat. Ding, ding, ding! The purple gold sword embryo quickly slashed out dozens of times. Each sword was filled with sharp power, forcing the bronze cauldron to retreat. Rin Xiaoyao's face turned red. When the bronze cauldron retreated, he was also forced to retreat. Waves of invisible sword intent followed the surface of the bronze cauldron and passed to his hands, and even his whole body like maggots in tarsal bones. Puff! Rin Xiaoyao suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was frighteningly pale. He roared and released his god domain. Rolling divine power surged out like a torrential river. Rin Xiaoyao's god domain was a black sea. The sea was filled with monstrous tsunamis. The sky was covered with dark clouds and black lightning flickered. It was like giant black snakes circling the dark clouds. Rin Xiaoyao stood in the sky above the Black Sea. His pale long hair fluttered in the wind. He was like a demon god, insufferably arrogant. Dawen, I want you to die. Rin Xiaoyao roared again and again. The rolling divine power that erupted from him caused the bronze cauldron to emit a terrifying green light. It forced the purple-gold sword embryo to retreat and fly back to Zhuowen's side. Whoosh! The bronze cauldron crossed the void with an unparalleled momentum. In the blink of an eye, it rushed over and enveloped Zhuowen's head. It was like a huge mountain falling from the sky, and it could crush Zhuowen into pieces at any time. The violent wind blew. Zhuowen's clothes fluttered in the wind, and his short shoulder-length hair fluttered wantonly. Zhuowen held the purple-gold sword embryo in one hand. With a long roar, he held the sword in his right hand and slashed out fiercely. Clang! The purple-gold sword embryo stood on the surface of the bronze cauldron. It was as if the whole world had stopped. Sight, sound, and touch seemed to have been stripped away. At this moment, he couldn't feel anything. Soon, there was a shocking explosion. The purple-gold sword embryo erupted with a shocking sword intent. The purple-gold light rushed above the pool, out of the pool, into the sky, and broke through the sky. Crack! Endless cracks appeared on the surface of the bronze cauldron, and the cracks became denser and denser. Finally, they covered the entire cauldron. Then, under Rin Xiaoyao's horrified gaze, the bronze cauldron shattered into countless pieces. Zhuowen slowly walked out of the bronze fragments, holding the purple-gold sword embryo in his hand. Like a god descending to the world, he crossed over. The purple-gold sword embryo in his hand was raised over Rin Xiaoyao's head and slashed down heavily. No, how is this possible? Rin Xiaoyao went crazy. He stimulated his divine domain with all his strength. The black sea surged to the sky, and the black thunder raged and fell into the sea. His divine domain was completely violent, and a terrifying power spread out. However, the purple-gold sword embryo was too terrifying. The towering waves were shattered by the sword embryo, and the raging black thunder was destroyed by the sword embryo. The purple-gold sword embryo fell on Rin Xiaoyao's head like a bolt of lightning. Puff! Rin Xiaoyao stood frozen on the spot. The waves of the black sea stopped, and the thunder and lightning in the black clouds froze. Boom! Rin Xiaoyao's divine domain began to collapse like a broken mirror. The surface of the divine domain was full of dense cracks. Puff! Rin Xiaoyao spat out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Zhuowen, fell from the shattered divine domain, and fell to the bottom of the pool. His eyes were wide open, and he died with remaining grievances. The moment Zhuowen killed Ren Xiaoyao with a sword, Ma Yujie also ended the battle on the other side. The fat man didn't use his full strength from the beginning. He just dealt with the old man casually. When Zhuowen killed Ren Xiaoyao, he used the power of the red bracelet to emit a red light, which pierced the old man's glabella and completely killed him. Damn it! This old man is indeed an expert at the early stage of the divine domain change. It took me so much effort to kill him. Ma Yujie deliberately touched his forehead and found that there was no sweat. He didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, he pretended to play the show to the end and panted. Zhuowen didn't bother to pay attention to Ma Yujie, the drama queen. This guy just didn't want to put in any effort, so he stalled the old man for so long. Otherwise, with the power of the red bracelet in Ma Yujie's hand, it would be easy for him to kill the old man. Chapter 3949. Zhuowen looked at the broken pieces of the bronze cauldron with a pained expression. The bronze cauldron was a rank 4 astral weapon after all. If it hadn't been broken, Zhuowen could have merged it with the purple gold sword embryo to increase its power. Brother Zhuo, we're rich. The Heart of Stars is a top-grade cultivation treasure. Just one piece of the Heart of Stars is equivalent to 10,000 top-grade chaos, spiritual veins. Ma Yujie exclaimed with bright eyes. Zhuowen was stunned for a second. Then his eyes lit up as he stared fixedly at the Heart of Stars on the small hill. He didn't know much about the Heart of Stars, and it was his first time hearing about it. Now, after Ma Yujie's explanation, he finally understood the value of the Heart of Stars. Zhuowen couldn't help but think of Shan Lingyun. He knew that Shan Lingyun needed the energy of 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins if she wanted to use the Soul of Words technique to search the entire 100 regions. Now, he didn't need to search for top-grade chaos spiritual veins. He only needed to obtain one Heart of Stars to satisfy Shan Lingyun's condition. The Heart of Stars must be mine. He thought to himself. No matter what, he wouldn't give it to Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie had been paying attention to Zhuowen's expression, especially when he saw the latter's ecstatic expression when he mentioned the Heart of Stars. He immediately regretted his decision. It seems like this kid didn't know the specific use of the Heart of Stars from the beginning. He only knew that it was extraordinary. This small hill is definitely not simple. Brother Ma, let's work together to obtain the Heart of Stars. Zhuowen said without batting an eyelid. Ma Yujie's eyes flickered, and he said, Brother Zhuo, there are 3 Hearts of Stars. How are we going to split them? Zhuowen grinned. Very simple. It depends on our own ability. Ma Yujie nodded his head, hearing that. He agreed with Zhuowen's words. Let's start working together. Ma Yujie said solemnly. Ma Yujie took out the crimson bracelet, and waves of crimson energy surged out like exploding flame ripples. Zhuowen took out his purple gold sword embryo, and a blazing purple gold sword chi soared into the sky. Let's attack together. Ma Yujie shouted loudly. The red bracelet in his hand suddenly swept out and blasted towards the small hill in front of him. Zhuowen didn't say anything. He pointed his right sword finger, and the purple gold sword embryo turned into a purple gold flowing light. It rushed out and drew a misty trajectory in the air. Boom, boom. The combined might of 2 rank 5 astral weapons was extremely terrifying. The surface of the small hill suddenly exploded, and a terrifying explosion that shook the heavens and shook the earth resounded. Boundless divine light erupted from the originally calm little hill. Like a monstrous tsunami, it surged out and slammed into the purple gold sword embryo and the crimson bracelet. The purple gold sword embryo and the crimson bracelet, which had been charging forward with unstoppable momentum, suddenly stopped in front of the small hill as if time had stopped. Boundless divine light circulated, as if it had turned into the world's sturdiest protective barrier, blocking the purple gold sword embryo and the crimson bracelet. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were hit by the ripples of divine light at the same time. They couldn't help but groan and spit out mouthfuls of blood. However, the 2 of them also knew that now wasn't the time to retreat. They had to break through the divine light, shatter the protective barrier, and obtain the Heart of the Stars in one go. Brother Ma, don't hold back. This is a critical moment. Zhuowen roared loudly. Surging yin and yang energy surged out, and an extremely huge yin-yang diagram appeared above his head. When Ma Yujie saw the yin-yang diagram above Zhuowen's head, he was shocked. This was also the first time he had seen such a huge yin-yang diagram. This kid was really extraordinary. At the same time that Zhuowen used all his strength, he also divided a bit of his attention to silently observe Ma Yujie. From the first day he met Ma Yujie until now, he seemed to have never completely seen through Ma Yujie's specific cultivation. Ma Yujie's body seemed to be enveloped by some kind of mysterious energy at all times, preventing others from peeking at him. After Zhuowen used all his strength, Ma Yujie hesitated for a moment and also used all his strength. His entire body surged with some kind of mysterious energy. The instant this energy entered the crimson bracelet seemed to have been injected with chicken blood, and it emitted a blazing blood-red light. Zhuowen's gaze was grave. The energy that Ma Yujie used was very unfamiliar to him. It wasn't yin and yang energy, nor was it the energy of a divine realm. It was some kind of extremely high-level energy. This was the first time that Zhuowen had seen this kind of energy. After Zhuowen and Ma Yujie poured all their strength into the 2 rank 5 astral weapons, their might became extremely terrifying. The purple gold light and the crimson light intertwined and tangled together like divine snakes, bombarding the small hill. Bang! 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 The small hill started to shake violently from the bombardment, and the divine splendor became even more blazing. However, it was still somewhat difficult to resist the joint attack of the 2 rank 5 astral weapons. The 2 rank 5 astral weapons opened a path in front, constantly approaching the top of the small hill. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie hurriedly followed, walking slowly. About an hour later, the 2 rank 5 astral weapons finally arrived at the top of the small hill. The crimson light and the purple gold light intertwined, transforming into a ring-shaped light barrier that enveloped Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, blocking the terrifying divine splendor energy that was converging in the surroundings. The instant the 2 of them arrived at the top of the small hill, they moved at the same time. Zhuowen suddenly grabbed towards the 3 star cores. Ma Yujie's movements weren't slow either. Although his body was fat, his movements were extremely nimble. In an instant, Zhuowen grabbed the rightmost heart of the stars, and a surging power surged out from the heart of the stars, almost knocking Zhuowen away. Ma Yujie, on the other hand, grabbed the leftmost star core. His fat hand was like an iron hoop, firmly grasping it, not letting go in the slightest. The 2 of them moved in unison, and were extremely fast. After grabbing the star cores, they immediately stored them in their spatial divine tools. After Zhuowen put the heart of the stars into his great world, he suddenly grabbed the heart of the stars in the center. Ma Yujie's eyes were sharp, and his hands were nimble. His right hand formed a claw and fiercely smashed towards Zhuowen's right hand. Zhuowen coldly snorted. His right hand formed a palm and changed direction, blasting towards Ma Yujie. A terrifying energy poured out from the center of his palm, its might overflowing the heavens. Boom! The 2 of them punched each other, and both retreated a few steps. Their auras became somewhat unstable, and they almost lost control of their rank 5 astral weapons. The boundless divine splendor of the small hill almost broke through their defenses and attacked the 2 of them. Brother Zhuo, good reaction. You were actually able to store the star cores in such a short time. Normal yin-yang transformation. Experts can't do that. Ma Yujie said with a fake smile. It's all right. It can only be said that my right hand is more nimble. Zhuowen said indifferently. Chapter 3950. At the top of the small hill, the 2 of them began to fight. Terrifying energy ripples burst out. It was extremely terrifying. However, while the 2 of them were fighting, Ma Yujie didn't notice that a silent black figure was approaching the last heart of stars. When the black shadow approached the heart of stars and turned into a black shadow, Ma Yujie finally reacted. His expression changed drastically, and he wanted to rush toward the black shadow to stop it. Zhuowen shouted coldly as he blocked Ma Yujie with all his might, intercepting him. The black shadow was extremely agile. It grabbed the heart of stars and put it into the great world. After doing that, the black shadow took the dust of the great world and quietly returned to Zhuowen's side. Zhuowen fiercely punched out. After pushing Ma Yujie back, he also retreated a few dozen steps. The purple gold sword embryo was like a loyal bodyguard, revolving around his body and constantly rotating. Strands of purple gold sword chi crisscrossed. Ma Yujia also recalled the red bracelet and left the small hill. He looked gloomily at Zhuowen and the Yin deities standing behind Zhuowen. Brother Zhua, I didn't expect you to have such a trick up your sleeve. This clone of yours has almost no aura. It's like an illusory shadow. Even I can't detect the existence of this clone of yours. Ma Yujia said coldly. Zhuowen smiled and said, I've already obtained the third heart of stars. According to the agreement, it should belong to me. Brother Ma, you won't break your promise and attack me, right? Ma Yujia's expression did not look too good. He groaned and said, I was careless this time. Let's leave this place. After saying that, Ma Yujia rushed toward the surface of the pool, without looking back. It seemed that he was really flustered and exasperated. Zhuowen silently looked at Ma Yujia's back as he left. He then looked at the small hill at the bottom of the pool. His eyes revealed a thoughtful look. He chuckled and shook his head, then left the bottom of the pool. Swoosh, swoosh. Two figures suddenly jumped out of the starry pool and landed on the shore of the pool. These two figures were Zhuowen and Ma Yujia. In front of the pool, the cave at the top of Fallen Star Mountain should be the absolute beginning cave. It's our target this time. Ma Yujia pointed at the cave in front of them and said indifferently. Zhuowen nodded. The two of them walked side by side to the front of the cave. The cave was not big. It was 2 meters high and 4 meters wide. A stone tablet stood at the entrance of the cave. There were 2 bold and powerful words carved on the tablet. Absolute beginning. Zhuowen looked at the stone tablet and muttered the 2 words on it. Brother Ma, Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujia beside him, of the absolute beginning cave. Of course, it is far more dangerous than the pool from before. Zhuowen nodded when he heard this. Looks like this absolute beginning cave was not as simple as he had imagined. Zhuowen glanced at Ma Yujia. He did not completely trust Ma Yujia. This fellow always liked to hide his cards. If he believed Ma Yujia, Zhuowen would really be in for a bad time. Zhuowen also knew that he could not let down his guard against Ma Yujia after entering the absolute beginning cave. This time, let's go in. Ma Yujia spoke. He lifted his foot and walked towards the entrance of the absolute beginning cave. Zhuowen followed closely behind. The moment the two of them stepped into the cave, they heard a terrifyingly powerful gust of wind coming from the depths of the cave. It was as if something was rushing over from the depths. Its speed was extremely fast, almost surpassing the speed of sound. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The terrifying gust of wind was like a rampaging beast that swept over. It instantly swept Zhuowen and Ma Yujia inside. Zhuowen immediately circulated the energy around him in an attempt to resist the gust of wind. However, the gust of wind was too terrifying. It was like an irresistible hand that grabbed his body and pulled him into the depths of the cave. Zhuowen's entire body was swept up by the gust of wind. His ears were filled with the violent gust of wind. The endless gust of wind assaulted his face, causing even the flesh on his face to tremble violently. His surroundings were completely dark. He was unable to see anything clearly. Even when Zhuowen used his soul, everything he could see was still pitch black. After an unknown amount of time, the gust of wind gradually weakened and dispersed in the end. Zhuowen's body landed on a desolate piece of land. This was a vast and boundless wasteland. A waning sun hung high in the sky, dyeing the entire sky blood red and adding a sense of desolation. On the barren land, there were barren mountains, each of which was thousands of miles away from each other. Apart from that, not a blade of grass grew on the wasteland. It was completely desolate and devoid of human habitation. At this moment, Zhuowen was standing on the cliff of a barren mountain. Ma Yujie was standing not far away from him. Ma Yujie's gaze was filled with a trace of confusion. However, he cleared his head right away. Clearly, he had also just woken up from the unforeseen event just now. F***CK. What the hell is this place? This absolute beginning cave is too strange. This Lord Fatty wasn't even prepared yet, and it sucked this Lord Fatty in. What the hell is going on? Ma Yujie cursed. Clearly, this Fatty was also frightened by the sudden gust of wind just now. Brother Ma, this should be the world of the true absolute beginning cave. The third piece of primordial stone should be somewhere in this world. Zhuowen said. Ma Yujie calmed down. He looked at Zhuowen and said, Brother Zhuowen, primordial stones can sense each other. You and I both take out our respective primordial stones and sense it carefully. Perhaps we can find the specific location of that third piece of primordial stone. Hearing that, Zhuowen considered for a while. After seeing Ma Yujie also take out his primordial stone, only then did he take out the grand word stone hidden in the great world at the last minute. The surface of Ma Yujie's stone was engraved with a sparkling, ancient character. It was precisely the second piece of primordial stone, ancient character stone. The moment the two primordial stones were taken out, they sensed each other and erupted with a purple light. After that, a thin purple line of light shot out from within the grand word stone and ancient character stone, rushing into the sky and converging into a purple light line that intertwined with each other. This ray of light shot into the sky and stayed there for about an hour before suddenly shooting towards the east. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's eyes lit up. They knew that the third piece of primordial stone should be on the east side of this wasteland. Go, let's follow this light line, Ma Yujie said excitedly. Zhuowen nodded. When the two people originally wanted to set off immediately, the two people's faces changed drastically. Chapter 3951. Roar. A world-shaking roar rang out from the bottom of the barren mountain, rushing into the clouds and shaking the horizon. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's faces were solemn as they retreated several thousand meters away, staring at the smashed barren mountain. The barren mountain had been completely reduced to ruins, shattered into pieces of irregular rocks. A huge hand, even more terrifying than the barren mountain, rushed out, suddenly landing on the barren ground. It seemed to be trying to push out an even larger body from the depths of the barren mountain. A terrifying aura burst out from the depths of the ground like a storm, causing the entire ground to shake. Just what is this thing? Zhuowen's eyes were filled with shock. The aura from the scaly hand made him shudder. Ma Yujie's face twitched, his narrow eyes filled with fear. This should be some kind of powerful exotic beast that was born within the absolute beginning cave. It's best if we don't meet it head-on. Let's run. Ma Yujie's eyes flickered. After saying this, he used his movement technique and swiftly rushed towards the east. Zhuowen secretly praised him for being cunning. He also used his movement technique to the best of his ability and followed closely behind. Not long after the two of them left, the terrifying exotic beast at the bottom of the barren mountain suddenly leapt out, leaping 10,000 kilometers into the air. This exotic beast was like a crocodile covered in tough scales. Its limbs were like deer's feet. and its large lantern-like eyes were filled with a strange blood-red color. The exotic beast was too large, twice the size of the barren mountain. The instant it leapt 10,000 kilometers into the air, its lantern-sized blood-red eyes quickly swiveled left and right. Afterwards, those eyes instantly locked onto Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, who were rapidly fleeing towards the east. The exotic beast opened its bloody mouth and let out another world-shaking roar. After that, the exotic beast's two powerful hind legs suddenly stomped in the air. Dense crackling sounds rang out in the air, and the space where the strange beast was exploded with an extremely large ring-shaped ripple. The strange beast was like an arrow that had left the bow, suddenly shooting out. Its speed had simply reached an unimaginable level. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, who were originally using their movement techniques to flee, seemed to have sensed something. They suddenly turned their heads and looked towards the sky behind them. Afterwards, they discovered to their shock that an extremely large black figure was swiftly rushing over from the sky behind them. The black figure grew closer and closer, and the two of them finally saw the true appearance of the black figure. It was an exotic beast covered in scales. It's the monster at the bottom of the barren mountain. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie immediately thought of something, and their faces immediately turned ugly. Roar! The exotic beast's speed was simply too fast. In the blink of an eye, it appeared above the two of them. It opened its bloody maw and pounced at Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, wanting to swallow them whole. God damn it! This exotic beast is actually so fast. Brother Zhuo, we must work together to deal with him. Ma Yujie suddenly turned around and summoned his scarlet bracelet. Instantly, a huge scarlet brilliance spread out, forming layers of terrifying scarlet energy ripples in front of him. It looked extremely terrifying. Zhuowen also stopped and summoned his purplish gold sword embryo. A terrifying purplish gold sword Qi soared into the sky and slashed at the exotic beast. Boom! The power of the scarlet bracelet and the purplish gold sword embryo poured into the exotic beast's mouth, intertwining with a blazing brilliance. The exotic beast's huge body blocked the two forces, while its bloody mouth was directly smashed into a bloody mess by the terrifying force. Its huge body flew backwards and crashed heavily onto the ground. The exotic beast suddenly got up, glaring at Zhuowen and Ma Yujie with its blood-red eyes. Its bloody mouth was actually healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the exotic beast's aura didn't decrease, but increased instead. Whoosh! The exotic beast's 4 feet stomped on the ground again, and its huge body leaped into the air. It broke through the sound barrier and rushed towards Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. Brother Ma, let's attack together and blast this beast to smithereens. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He suddenly grasped the hilt of the purplish gold sword embryo with his right hand and executed the Grand Mist body technique. His entire body turned into an illusory purple shadow. Ma Yujie's eyes flickered. He quietly put away the scarlet bracelet and took a few steps back. Boom! Zhuowen suddenly approached the exotic beast and slashed out with the purplish gold sword embryo in his hand. A terrifying purplish gold sword Qi rushed out like a purplish gold rainbow, indestructible and unstoppable. The exotic beast's right claw suddenly smashed out towards Zhuowen's face. Rays of scarlet light rushed towards him. Kacha! Zhuowen's figure was like a ghost. After dodging the claw, he accurately stood at the depths of the exotic beast's right arm and chopped off its right hand. Mournful blood splattered out, turning into a rain of blood that poured down in the air. The exotic beast wailed, and its huge body couldn't help but retreat. Zhuowen also groaned and retreated a few hundred meters. Brother Ma, what are you waiting for? Come and help me kill this exotic beast. Zhuowen steadied himself. Seeing that Ma Yujie didn't follow up to deal with the exotic beast, his face turned ugly. He looked at Ma Yujie behind him. Ma Yujie grinned and said, "Brother Zhua, with your strength, you're more than enough to deal with this exotic beast. I won't get involved, and will leave first." After saying that, Ma Yujie twisted his fat body and suddenly shot towards the east. His speed was so fast that he quickly disappeared. F***CK, this damn fatty. Zhuowen couldn't help but curse. He cursed Ma Yujie's 18 generations of ancestors in his heart. He originally wanted to chase after Ma Yujie. How could that injured exotic beast let Zhuowen go so easily? The exotic beast roared angrily and charged at Zhuowen again, completely blocking his path of retreat. Then, as if it had lost its mind, it attacked Zhuowen without any regard for its life. Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He kept brandishing the purplish gold sword embryo, blocking the exotic beast's violent attacks. The purplish gold sword chi, released by the purplish gold sword embryo, was extremely terrifying and sharp. It blocked all of the exotic beast's attacks, and the exotic beast was blasted into a bloody mess by the purplish gold sword chi. However, the exotic beast's recovery ability was too strong. The right arm that Zhuowen had just chopped off actually grew back at full strength. Zhuowen's face was gloomy. He knew that if he couldn't crush the exotic beast in one go, it would be impossible to kill it. Zhuowen took a deep breath. He suddenly grasped the purplish gold sword embryo and executed the primordial body technique to the extreme. Then, he planned to use the purplish gold sword embryo to execute the primordial soldier art. The primordial soldier art was the culmination of Zhuowen's many divine abilities. It fused with many powerful divine abilities, and its power was boundless. This was the first time he executed the primordial soldier art with a rank 5 astral weapon, and he didn't know how powerful it was. Heaven and Earth, Primordial Silver Lining. Chapter 3952. The beast raised its claws with all its might in an attempt to block the terrifying sword chi. Unfortunately, it was all for naught. The sword chi was just too terrifying. At that moment, it was as if there was only a single strand of sword chi left in the entire world. No one could rival or block it. Spurt! The sword chi pierced through the beast, and then the beast was cleaved into two. Its enormous corpse was split in two. The split corpse fell from the sky and collapsed, torn apart by the countless strands of sword chi. After completely killing the beast, Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. His heart was filled with bitterness. The absolute beginning cave was truly strange. He had only just entered, and he had already encountered such a terrifying beast. He really didn't dare to imagine what other strange things he would encounter if he continued onwards. Bang! 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 Just as Zhuowen was lost in thought, he sensed terrifying tremors in the surroundings of the desolate land. Afterwards, he discovered to his shock that the barren mountains that stood on the desolate land had all collapsed. Horrifying gigantic beasts covered in scales poked out from the bottom of the barren mountain. Horrifying roars rose one after another. Zhuowen's face immediately turned green. He knew that a terrifying beast was suppressed under every mountain on the desolate land. There were at least a few dozen mountains on the desolate land. In other words, there were at least a few dozen terrifying beasts hidden under the desolate land. I have to leave this desolate land. Without even thinking, Zhuowen used his movement technique to the best of his ability and shot towards the east. Not long after, he saw a boundless grassland in front of him. When Zhuowen was still a few hundred meters away from the boundary between the grassland and the desolate land, ear-piercing sounds of something tearing through the air came from behind him. He swept out with his soul and saw a few dozen terrifying beasts leaping over 10,000 kilometers into the air. They shot towards Zhuowen like arrows that had been released from a bow. They moved extremely quickly. Zhuowen's heart beat extremely quickly. He was extremely nervous. The moment he arrived at the boundary, the sound of something tearing through the air had already arrived behind him. The roars of beasts constantly rang in his ears. A huge beast claw suddenly slammed over, grabbing towards Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen reacted very quickly. He suddenly turned around and slashed out with the purplish gold sword embryo in his hand. The beast's right claw was chopped off by Zhuowen. Blood splattered, and Zhuowen grunted as he fell completely into the boundary of the grassland. Zhuowen landed on the grassland. He rolled a few times in a sorry state before he finally stabilized himself. At the same time, the dozens of beasts stopped at the boundary of the desolate land. They stared fixedly at Zhuowen with their scarlet eyes, but they didn't dare to step out of the desolate land and enter the grassland. It was as if there was some sort of a strange force was. Zhuowen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the dozens of strange beasts didn't dare to step into the grassland. He hurriedly got up and began to observe the grassland. This grassland wasn't green, but blue. Blue grass grew densely on the ground. They covered every corner of the grassland. Other than that, there was nothing else on this grassland, not even a living creature. Zhuowen didn't even see Ma Yujia's figure. Suddenly, Zhuowen discovered that the blue grass under his feet was shaking slightly. Then, it spewed out dark blue gas. It wasn't just the blue grass under his feet. The entire grassland was spewing out this strange dark blue gas. The dark blue gas slowly rose and poured into Zhuowen's pores and nostrils. There's something wrong with this gas. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He felt powerless and dizzy. He immediately closed all the pores on his body and held his breath. He knew that this wasn't a long-term solution. He could only close all the pores and breathe for 10 days at most. After 10 days, he would suffocate to death. In other words, he had to leave this blue grassland within 10 days. Zhuowen looked at the wasteland in front of him. At the border, the dozens of strange beasts were baring their teeth at Zhuowen. They couldn't wait to swallow Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew that he couldn't return to the wasteland. Once he did, he would probably die. He could only continue forward and leave this blue grassland. Zhuowen planned to use his movement skill. Unfortunately, he was powerless and couldn't use his divine power. He was like an ordinary person. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. He knew that the reason for this was because of the dark blue gas released by the grassland. He could only leave this grassland and force out the poison in his body. Only then could he resolve his powerless state. Zhuowen didn't dare to force out the poison in this strange grassland, because when he forced out the poison, his pores would open and he would inhale even more poison. At that time, he might not even have the strength to walk. Zhuowen took many antidote pills. After slightly alleviating the poison in his body, he set off. The antidote pills he had weren't of a high level. They could only temporarily suppress the poison, but they couldn't completely eradicate it. This made Zhuowen sigh helplessly. Time passed day by day. Zhuowen was like an ordinary person. He walked through this grassland step by step. Finally, on the 10th day, Zhuowen saw the border of the grassland. On the other side of the grassland was a world of ice and snow. Snowy mountains stood there. They were covered in white snow and were wrapped in silver. At the same time, he saw a fat figure at the top of a snowy mountain in the world of ice and snow. This fat figure was looking at the grassland as if he was looking for something. When the fat figure saw Zhuowen, he was very excited. He hurriedly waved his hand in the air, indicating for Zhuowen to go over. Zhuowen's face immediately darkened. This fat figure was none other than that damned fatty Ma Yujia. Zhuowen gnashed his teeth. Back in the wasteland, this damned fatty had abandoned him without hesitation. He had almost caused his death. Now, he actually had the face to wave at him. He was simply shameless. Ma Yujia obviously didn't know this. He had been waiting for Zhuowen. He only had one primordial stone on him. He could roughly sense the location of the third primordial stone, but he couldn't sense its exact location. They could only find the exact location of the third primordial stone if they worked together with Zhuowen's grand word stone. Zhuowen's face darkened. He strode into the world of ice and snow. Then Zhuowen ignored Ma Yujia. He sat cross-legged at the foot of a snowy mountain and began to circulate his divine power. He opened his pores and began to force out the poison in his body. Chapter 3953. When Zhuowen forced out the poisonous blood on the summit of the snow mountain, Ma Yujia also came to the foot of the mountain, silently waiting for Zhuowen to finish forcing out the poison. Roughly an hour later, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes bursting with a light that was difficult to look at. He thoroughly forced the poison out of his body, only feeling refreshed, full of vigor. Congratulations, Brother Zhuo, for successfully forcing out the poison in your body. Ma Yujia hurriedly went forward to congratulate, his fat face revealing a brilliant smile, as if he was really happy for Zhuowen. Zhuowen glanced sideways at Ma Yujia, a nameless fire rising in his heart. Back in the desolate land, this damn fatty was too unloyal, directly abandoning him, nearly causing him to lose his life in the desolate land. If Ma Yujia joined forces with him back then, he could finish off that exotic beast even faster and leave the desolate land unhurriedly. Seeing that Zhuowen ignored him, Ma Yujia did not get angry either, saying sincerely, Brother Zhuo, I know that you're still blaming me for running away alone in the desolate land. This matter can't be blamed on me either. I was really too scared of that exotic beast. So scared that I only wanted to escape. I was wrong this time. Brother Zhuo, punish me. I can bear any consequences. Furthermore, I also know that, Brother Zhuo, you're someone who deals with matters as they are. Our main objective entering the Grand Primordium Cave was for the primordial stone. I think that, Brother Zhuo, you're someone who considers the big picture. You definitely won't dissolve the cooperation between us because of this small matter, right? Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujia indifferently and said indifferently, you can rest assured. Our cooperation is an oath to Heavenly Tao. I naturally won't go against it. However, from now on, you and I still need to swear to Heavenly Tao. During the cooperation period, we must work together as one. Unless it's a last resort, we absolutely can't run away alone. Ma Yujia revealed a hesitant look, but seeing Zhuowen's expression becoming uglier and uglier, he could only brace himself and swear such an oath. He knew that Zhuowen was really angry. This time, it would not be so easy to fool him. After Ma Yujia swore an oath to the Heavenly Tao, Zhuowen's expression eased up. Take out your ancient word stone. Let's sense the exact location of the third primordial stone. Zhuowen said indifferently. Ma Yujia naturally did not dare to be negligent. He took out the ancient word stone, while Zhuowen took out the supreme word stone. The two stones emitted mysterious purple rays of light. The two rays of light intertwined and shot up into the sky. After about a quarter of an hour, they suddenly rushed into the depths of the snowy mountain world. Zhuowen and Ma Yujia looked at the same time and found that the light was still pointing to the east. The two of them were shocked. They had already passed through the desolate land and the blue grassland, and arrived at the third world of ice and snow, yet they still hadn't arrived at the hiding place of the third primordial stone. Judging from the direction of the light, the third primordial stone, should be even deeper. From this, it could be seen just how big the world within the absolute beginning cave was. Let's go. Let's move on. Zhuowen put away the supreme word stone and urged Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie put away the ancient word stone and nodded his head. The two of them executed their movement techniques and rushed toward the depths of the world of ice and snow. This world of ice and snow is very strange. These drifting snowflakes directly affect the divine soul. If one stays here for too long, their entire divine soul will be frozen, and the person will also die silently. Ma Yujie and Zhuowen walked side by side, purple energy revolving around their bodies. That was the power of the ancient word stone, protecting his divine soul. Zhuowen was stunned. He sensed carefully. His divine soul indeed felt somewhat stagnant. He discovered that these snowflakes affected the divine soul silently. If not for Ma Yujie's reminder, he wouldn't even have noticed this effect. Zhuowen hurriedly urged the power of the ancient word stone. Purple energy surged out and enveloped his entire body. Only then did that stagnant feeling in his divine soul completely disappear. Brother Ma, you've been to the absolute beginning cave before. Zhuowen asked in surprise. This guy even knew this. Zhuowen suspected that this guy had come to explore this place before. Ma Yujie shook his head and said, "It's also my first time in the absolute beginning cave. The reason I could sense the strangeness of the world of ice and snow was because I found corpses on the snowy mountains. I studied these corpses. Their divine souls were all frozen without exception. Other than that, they didn't have any wounds at all. They were no different from ordinary people." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and didn't ask any more questions. The two of them instantly fell into silence. About several hours later, the two of them arrived at the border of the world of ice and snow. They saw that there was a huge lake at the border of the world of ice and snow. However, this lake was frozen by the ice and snow, turning into a layer of ice. On the ice surface, there were many ice sculptures. These ice sculptures were of the human race, half-beast men, and also giants that were over 30 meters tall. At a glance, there were at least several hundred of them. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie both stopped at the shore of the lake at the same time. Their expressions became extremely solemn. This was because they realized that the postures of these ice sculptures on the ice surface were surprisingly consistent. They were all rushing toward the border of the world of ice and snow, leaving the world of ice and snow. However, they didn't successfully leave in the end. Instead, they were affected by some kind of power and turned into ice sculptures. This lake is very strange. Ma Yujie muttered to himself. He looked at those strange ice sculptures and then at the lake. We each have a primordial stone. Even if this lake is strange, I'm afraid it won't be of much use to us. Zhuowen was very confident. He was very confident in the power of the primordial stone. Therefore, he took out the supreme stone and held it in his hand. Then, he lifted his foot and stepped into the lake. The moment he stepped into the lake, the supreme stone in his hand immediately emitted waves of purple energy ripples. They wrapped around his body in a ring shape, forming layers of powerful protection. Zhuowen's body trembled. He looked at his feet and saw waves of terrifying cold air that seemed to materialize. They lingered around his feet, wanting to rush up and freeze Zhuowen's entire body. Fortunately, his supreme stone released a blazing purple energy that blocked all the cold air below his knees. Even so, his small feet below his knees were frozen into ice sculptures by the cold air. They were crystal clear, making it difficult for Zhuowen to even walk. Zhuowen had no choice but to follow suit. He walked extremely slowly. Ma Yujie's eyes flickered when he saw Zhuowen walking on the lake safely. He also took out his supreme stone and jumped into the lake. Chapter 3954. 10 hours later, the two finally reached the opposite side of the lake. After the two of them barely reached the shore, they sat on the ground and began to use their divine power to break the ice on their calves. This lake is really strange. This cold air is too terrifying. If not for the protection of the primordial stone, I'm afraid I would have turned into an ice sculpture too. Ma Yujie kept rubbing his feet, which had turned red from the cold, as he muttered and complained. Zhuowen did not say a word, but quietly recovered his strength. He had a feeling that the third primordial stone should be very close to them. After resting for a while, Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were ready to continue forward. Behind the world of ice and snow was a vast plain. At the end of the plain stood a pyramid. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie looked at each other and took out the primordial stone tacitly. Immediately, two intertwined purple rays of light shot out, landing on the pyramid at the end of the plain. Looks like the third primordial stone is inside that pyramid, Ma Yujie said excitedly. Zhuowen's eyes also lit up. They had searched in the absolute beginning cave for so long, experienced many life and death crises, and finally found the final location of the primordial stone. The two of them put away their respective primordial stones and rushed toward the pyramid. In a short while, the two of them arrived at the bottom of the pyramid. This pyramid was 1,000 feet tall, made of green jade stones that were several feet tall. In addition, the surface of the pyramid was drawn with dense patterns, looking ancient and full of vicissitudes of time. There are extremely powerful restrictions set up around this pyramid. Ma Yujie's eyes were solemn. He kept pacing around the pyramid, a look of contemplation in his eyes. Zhuowen stood silently on the spot. The restrictions on this pyramid were too complicated. He could not understand at all. Now, he could only place his hopes on Ma Yujie. This guy's origin was not ordinary, and he knew more than him. Most likely, he had a way to break this restriction. Sure enough, Ma Yujie suddenly stopped and said to Zhuowen, "Brother Zhuowen, although this restriction is very powerful because of its age, its weakness is also extremely obvious. Next, you'll attack the weak point of this restriction with me and break it open completely. However, you must listen to my commands." Hearing this, Zhuowen thought for a moment and nodded in agreement with Ma Yujie. Next, Ma Yujie took out the red bracelet and began to issue orders, bombarding various parts of the pyramid. Zhuowen followed Ma Yujie's instructions and attacked with all his might. When their joint attack landed on the tip of the pyramid, the runes on the surface of the pyramid lit up instantly. A terrifying pressure poured down and spread across the entire plain. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie immediately withdrew their respective astral weapons and hastily retreated. The light on the surface of the pyramid shone brightly and then gradually faded away, restoring the original appearance of the pyramid. However, at the center of the pyramid, a piece of green jade stone was suddenly pushed out. It fell from the pyramid and hit the ground. Bang! A dull sound was heard. The sound of the huge green jade stone falling to the ground was extremely loud and clear. The entire ground seemed to have shaken several times. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie looked at each other with joy on their faces. They knew that the hole created by the falling of the green jade stone was the entrance to the pyramid. "Let's go." Zhuowen and Ma Yujie didn't even think about it. They both charged into the gap and disappeared into it in the blink of an eye. The structure of the pyramid was very complicated. It was crooked and twisted like a maze. Moreover, the passage inside was very narrow. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie walked side by side, and it seemed a little crowded. The two of them walked through the passage for a full day before finally walking out of the passage and entering the center of the pyramid. Originally, the two of them thought that the pyramid would be full of dangers and countless traps. However, they did not expect that they would easily reach the center of the pyramid without encountering any traps. At the core of the pyramid was an extremely large stone hall. Thick stone pillars stood on both sides of the stone hall. The surface of each pillar was engraved with various strange beasts baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Their expressions were ferocious. In the center of the stone hall, there was an altar. Above the altar, there was an ordinary-looking stone floating in the air. The moment Zhuowen and Ma Yujie saw the stone, their breathing quickened. This stone was the third primordial stone that the two of them had been searching for. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie stiffened. Then, the two of them rushed toward the altar at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the two of them arrived in front of the altar. They reached out their right hands at the same time and grabbed the floating stone on the altar. Bang, bang. Suddenly, the surface of the altar shone with a terrifying light. It was as if a universe of light had spilled out. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were hit at the same time. They spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. What a powerful earth energy! Zhuowen landed on the ground and looked at the primordial stone floating on the altar with a bewildered expression. To be more precise, he was looking at the altar because the terrifying energy just now had surged out from the altar. Ma Yujie also looked at the altar in bewilderment. Obviously, he did not expect such an accident to happen. The two of them calmed down and looked at each other warily. They both felt a little embarrassed. The moment they attacked just now, the two of them had already shed all pretenses of cordiality. In the end, it was Ma Yujie who broke the silence. He coughed dryly and said, "Brother Zhuo, this altar is not ordinary. Why don't we work together and break this altar first?" Zhuowen pretended to think for a while and finally nodded. "I completely agree with your opinion. After all, we are still partners." After reaching an agreement, the two of them put their arms around each other's shoulders and called each other brothers. They were just short of swearing blood to form an alliance. "Let's begin." Ma Yujie and Zhuowen took out their rank 5 astral weapons at the same time and attacked together. The purple gold sword embryo slashed out with a purple gold sword light that shot into the sky. Space shattered and collapsed, and time seemed to flow backward. The crimson bracelet erupted with a terrifying crimson light. It condensed continuously and finally transformed into a gigantic crimson dragon that was thousands of meters long. The dragon's body was covered in dragon scales, and it looked cold and terrifying. The purple gold sword light shot into the sky and intertwined with the gigantic crimson dragon, erupting with an extremely terrifying power. Suddenly, the entire stone hall was enveloped and occupied by the purple gold and crimson light. It was demonic and terrifying. When the two attacks finally landed on the altar, the entire altar trembled violently. Then, the stone hall also started to shake. Countless cracks appeared on the surrounding stone pillars, and then they collapsed. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie almost lost their balance. Chapter 3955. Crack! Finally, the altar that was covered in cracks emitted a clear and melodious cracking sound, and then it collapsed with a bang and dispersed into countless pieces of powder. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's eyes lit up. They acted at the same time to snatch the primordial stone from the altar. As they approached the primordial stone, Zhuowen suddenly slashed out the purple gold sword embryo. A terrifying and vast sword chi soared into the sky and blasted toward Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie's expression changed drastically. He never thought that Zhuowen would give up on the primordial stone and attack him directly. It was really against common sense. His right hand was about to touch the primordial stone, but the purple gold sword embryo's attack was also close at hand. If he ignored it, he could indeed snatch the primordial stone, but he would also be hit by the purple gold sword embryo's attack. This was a rank 5 astral weapon. Its full power was enough to injure him severely. Once he was heavily injured, he would fall into a passive position, and Zhuowen would seize the initiative. At that time, he would really be in danger. Not only would he lose the primordial stone, he might even lose his life. Ma Yujie made a prompt decision. He withdrew his hand and used all his strength to summon the red bracelet. Waves of red energy rippled in front of him like endless radiance. Bang, bang, bang. The purple gold sword embryo fell like a sun and smashed onto the red bracelet. Suddenly, the purple gold and red intertwined. The whole world seemed to be occupied by these two colors. In the instant when the two of them were in a deadlock, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. The yin-yang pattern above his head spun rapidly and split into two incarnations. They were the yin god and the yang god. The yang god's body emitted a blazing light like the sun. He suddenly rushed out and appeared above Ma Yujie. He punched out fiercely. The punch was as powerful as a mountain. It was so powerful that the entire space exploded. Ma Yujie's expression changed slightly. He snorted coldly and punched out with his right hand. The fist light was like a long spear, sharp and heavy. Bang! The two fists collided, and the yang spirit was directly sent flying backward. Cracks appeared on his powerful body, and Ma Yujie also snorted and took a few steps back. Ma Yujie's face fell as he cursed under his breath and charged towards Yinshan. Zhuowen naturally wouldn't let Ma Yujie have his way. Holding the purple gold sword embryo in his hand, he suddenly slashed out. Terrifying sword chi continuously condensed, turning into a sword light that pierced through the heavens and earth. Heaven and earth primordial one line. Zhuowen's voice was cold and indifferent. His right hand suddenly slashed out. A terrifying sword chi shot out like an arrow from a bow and slashed in front of Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie's expression changed drastically. This sword aura was too terrifying. It actually made him feel like he was about to die. It was too terrifying. Ma Yujie had no choice but to retreat. One step back was followed by another. Ma Yujie used all his strength to activate the red bracelet. Countless red energy ripples continuously condensed in front of him, forming layers of red protective shields, like tortoiseshell. Bang, bang, bang. The sword chi was too terrifying. When it slammed into the protective shields, the layers of protective shields were all shattered. With every layer of protective shields that shattered, Ma Yujie took a step back. When all the protective shields were shattered, Ma Yujie had already retreated 1,000 meters away. He barely managed to block the terrifying sword chi. Ma Yujie's face was gloomy as he looked at the young man, who was standing in the void 1,000 meters away. He was playing with the third primordial stone in his hand. He never expected that he would be the one to fail in the fight for the third primordial stone. This kid is too cunning. Even I fell for his trick. Ma Yujie was flustered and exasperated. At the same time, he felt helpless. According to the agreement, the third primordial stone would be fought for by one's own ability, and it would belong to whoever obtained it. Now that Zhuowen had taken the stone, it naturally belonged to Zhuowen. Brother Ma, you're indeed noble. You can even give the primordial stone to me. I'm really impressed. Zhuowen kept the third primordial stone in his macro world and cupped his hands at Ma Yujie with a smile. Ma Yujie was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he had no choice but to suppress his anger. He revealed a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "You're too kind. Brother Zhua, according to the agreement, this primordial stone's cultivation technique should be shared with me, right?" Zhuowen nodded. He and Ma Yujie had both sworn an oath to the heavenly Tao. Naturally, they could not easily go against their oath. Zhuowen roughly browsed through the contents of the third primordial stone. This primordial stone had the word Hong written on its surface. It should be a Hong word stone. Within the Hong word stone, a series of obscure incantations automatically appeared in the depths of his divine soul. This incantation was extremely profound. Even for Zhuowen, he would need to spend a very long time to comprehend it. He took out a blank jade slip to copy the contents of the incantation into the jade slip. Several hours later, Zhuowen finally copied all the incantations on the Hong word stone into the jade slip. He then handed the jade slip over to Ma Yujie. Ma Yujie received the jade slip and checked it repeatedly. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the contents, he kept the jade slip. "Brother Zhua, there should be a treasure land under this altar. How about we go down and explore together?" Ma Yujie pointed at the bottom of the shattered altar. There was a deep cave where the altar used to be. However, the cave entrance was not big. It could barely fit 3 to 4 people. Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujie's fat body and sighed inwardly. Ma Yujie alone was equivalent to 2 people. If the 2 of them went in together, it would be too cramped. However, Zhuowen was also very interested in the cave entrance. After the altar shattered, he vaguely felt a pure energy aura drifting out from the depths of the cave. This energy aura was extremely pure. There must be a lot of top-grade chaos spiritual veins hidden below. Both of them exchanged a glance and nodded. Both of them decided to explore the mysterious cave entrance. Whoosh! Both of them rushed into the cave entrance like a gust of wind. The cave entrance was pitch black, and they couldn't even see their own fingers. The moment both of them entered, they heard a series of howls. They knew that the cave entrance was filled with a shocking number of evil spirits. The corners of Ma Yujie's mouth curled up slightly. His body emitted a blazing light, and a strange energy surrounded him. Immediately, the evil spirits around him screamed in fear, not daring to come close to Ma Yujie. After forcing the evil spirits away, Ma Yujie's wretched eyes were filled with smugness. He couldn't help looking at Zhuowen, thinking that Zhuowen would have to spend some effort to force these evil spirits away. He was looking forward to seeing Zhuowen make a fool of himself. Chapter 3956. What's going on with this kid? He actually refined the evil spirits for his own use. This doesn't seem like the primordial grand mist technique, does it? Ma Yujie muttered in his heart as he looked at Zhuowen with a solemn expression. He felt like he couldn't see through Zhuowen anymore. He had a piece of primordial grand mist stone in his possession, so he had comprehended the primordial grand mist technique before. He knew how the primordial grand mist technique worked. However, although the purple gold light released by Zhuowen contained traces of the primordial grand mist technique, it wasn't completely the primordial grand mist technique. Instead, it was a combination of other powerful techniques. Ma Yujie didn't expect that Zhuowen wasn't just cultivating the primordial grand mist technique. He had already created his own technique that was suitable for him. His cultivation technique was based on the primordial grand mist technique as a foundation. He had continuously merged other powerful techniques to form a peerless cultivation technique. Especially the universal scripture of heaven and earth and the universal scripture of growth. These two techniques allowed Zhuowen to directly refine the evil spirits which would aid his cultivation. This was an extremely heaven-defying characteristic. Zhuowen naturally noticed Ma Yujie peeking at him, but he didn't mind. Ma Yujie was the same as him. They both had the primordial Grand Mist Stone and came from the mysterious primordial star system. Ma Yujie had many more secrets than him. Both of them knew their own secrets, and he knew that Ma Yujie wouldn't casually reveal his secrets in front of others. Naturally, he was the same. The deeper they went, the more evil spirits there were. As far as the eye could see, there were endless shadows of evil spirits. Mournful shrieks continuously gathered around them. Zhuowen's expression was calm as the purple-gold aura around him turned into tiny vortexes. Any evil spirits that came close to him were absorbed by the vortexes, turning into the purest energy that entered Zhuowen's acupuncture points. Billowing energy surged, and Zhuowen felt his limbs and bones brimming with energy. His cultivation also rose continuously. Ever since Zhuowen obtained the primordial chance cultivation technique from Ma Yujie, his cultivation was no longer shackled, and he could continue cultivating. His cultivation level was originally at the early stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. Now, as he went deeper into the cave, his cultivation level continued to increase. He was approaching the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. These are all top-grade chaos spiritual veins. After the two of them reached the bottom, Ma Yujie looked around in disbelief and couldn't help but exclaim. At the bottom of the cave, there was an extremely large grotto. On the walls of the grotto, rays of bright light shot out. These lights condensed into light dragons that constantly coiled and swam in the air, surging to the extreme. They surged like a tidal wave, assaulting his face. The moment these energies came into contact with Zhuowen's body, they actually liquefied and turned into drops of crystal-clear energy liquid. Zhuowen casually took a breath, and rich energy flowed into his body, filling his limbs and bones, and increasing his cultivation. After a moment of daze, Zhuowen and Ma Yujie pounced forward at the same time. They began to crazily grab the top-grade chaos spiritual veins hidden deep within the grotto. The two of them seemed to have gone crazy as they grabbed the top-grade chaos spiritual veins they saw. They didn't stop at all. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them had practically emptied all the top-grade chaos spiritual veins in the grotto. The grotto, which had been shining brightly due to the spiritual veins' brilliance, was now dark and gloomy. Maybe there are still treasures hidden in this grotto. Ma Yujie's eyes turned green, but he still wasn't satisfied. He continued to search the grotto, rummaging left and right. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was extremely calm. While he was collecting the top-grade chaos spiritual veins, he released his Yin divinity to search the entire grotto. Other than the top-grade chaos spiritual veins, there was nothing else in this grotto. Zhuowen saw that Ma Yujie was still rummaging left and right, and even entered the depths of the grotto. A light flickered in his eyes, and he quietly left the grotto, flying upwards. Zhuowen executed the Grand Mist movement art at full speed. His speed was so fast that only a purple afterimage could be seen. He had never forgotten the small hill at the bottom of the lake. If his guess was right, that small hill should be a treasure much more precious than the heart of stars. After all, the divine splendor that small hill emitted was enough to force Zhuowen and Ma Yujie to use a rank 5 astral weapon. From this, it could be seen that the small hill was definitely not simple. After leaving the grotto, Zhuowen immediately set up layers of traps at the grotto's entrance. As long as Ma Yujie came out, he would definitely trigger the traps. After setting up the traps, Zhuowen moved swiftly. He passed through the world of ice, the blue grassland, the barren plains, and finally returned to the absolute beginning grotto's entrance. At the same time, he spent a lot of time setting up extremely complicated and terrifying traps at the absolute beginning grotto's entrance. After he was done, Zhuowen revealed a satisfied expression. He left the absolute beginning grotto and came to the shore of the lake. The purple gold sword embryo was like the most loyal bodyguard as it revolved around his body. Splash! Zhuowen jumped into the lake without hesitation. Countless specks of starlight dust rushed over like maggots, wanting to wrap around Zhuowen. However, these specks of starlight dust were blocked by the purple gold sword embryo's sword chi. They couldn't pass through at all. Before long, Zhuowen reached the bottom of the lake and saw the small hill at the bottom of the lake. Ever since this small hill lost the heart of stars, it no longer emitted any divine splendor. It looked just like an ordinary hill. However, Zhuowen could sense the extremely terrifying energy radiating from the surface of the small hill. Although the energy was not powerful, it was extremely terrifying. It actually made Zhuowen's hair stand on end. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He summoned his Yin spirit and began to observe the small hill. At the same time, he used the purple gold sword embryo as a medium to come into contact with the small hill. He planned to directly refine the small hill and take it for his own use. But what shocked Zhuowen was that the moment his power came into contact with the small hill suddenly buzzed, and then like a whale sucking in water, it began to madly absorb the energy in his body. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. He felt disbelief. The speed at which the small hill absorbed energy had reached an unbelievable level. His flesh and blood actually shriveled at a visible rate. His essence, blood, and energy were all being absorbed by the small hill. Shit, don't tell me it's going to suck me dry. Zhuowen's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to pull his hand away, but the suction force was so strong that he couldn't move. Zhuowen was helpless. He knew that it was impossible for him to escape. He began to madly absorb the numerous top-grade chaos spiritual veins he had just obtained. He could only continue to absorb the chaos spiritual veins energy. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to withstand the suction force and would really turn into a dried corpse. While Zhuowen was in a predicament, Ma Yujie walked out from the depths of the absolute beginning cave while cursing. What a waste of this Lord Fatty's feelings. There's actually nothing else. Ma Yujie walked to the center of the cave and realized that something was wrong. He didn't see Zhuowen's figure anywhere. His divine sense suddenly radiated outwards, but Zhuowen's figure was nowhere to be found. Not good. That kid didn't go to the bottom of the lake outside the absolute beginning cave, right? Damn it. He actually has designs on that small hill. This is unforgivable. Chapter 3957. Boom, boom. A terrifying explosion was set off from the entrance of the grotto. The powerful shockwave was like a ring-shaped ripple that spread out in all directions. Ma Yujie's fat body was blown away by the energy of the explosions. He rolled around like a kicked ball, and his entire body was charred black. Fuck, Zhuowen, you damned bastard. You actually tricked me, Ma Yujie cried out miserably as he resisted the terrifying energy ripples from the trap. He cursed as spittle flew everywhere. After about a quarter of an hour, the explosion of the trap finally subsided, and an incomparably charred fat body fell to the ground in a sorry state. Ma Yujie crawled to his feet. His entire body was charred black, and the fragrance of meat wafted from him. Fortunately, his body was extremely resilient. His wounds gradually healed after a while, and his charred flesh grew back. Ma Yujie's face sank. The trap that Zhuowen had set up at the entrance of the cave was not particularly terrifying. If he had been prepared beforehand, he would not have ended up in such a sorry state. The trap might not have even been able to harm him. However, he had been too confident. He had never thought that Zhuowen would play such a dirty trick on him. As a result, he had stepped into the trap without any preparation. Naturally, the outcome was extremely tragic. Zhuowen, you bastard, you actually tricked me like that. Well done, I'll definitely kill you. After Ma Yujie cursed for a while, he finally calmed down. After tidying up his clothes, he left the area. When he passed through the boundaries of the various worlds in the absolute beginning cave, Ma Yujie was extremely cautious. He was afraid that Zhuowen had set up another trap. He understood the little bastard Zhuowen far too well. This bastard definitely would not trick him just once. As long as he could trick him, this bastard would definitely try to trick him to his death. He would not even have to pay for it if he tricked him to death. Ma Yujie passed through the world of ice, the blue plains, and the barren plains. However, what puzzled him was that he did not discover any traps at the boundaries of the various worlds. Looks like this guy is in a hurry to get to the bottom of the pool. He plans on taking the hill away, so he only set up a trap. Ma Yujie muttered to himself. The vigilance in his heart had also greatly relaxed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. His pace also became much faster. He was also extremely anxious. When he had seized the heart of the stars, he had noticed the small hill that contained the heart of the stars. He dared to conclude that the small hill was definitely not simple. At the very least, its value was much higher than the heart of stars. At that time, because Zhuowen was present, he was too embarrassed to take it. He had originally planned to explore the absolute beginning cave and then secretly head to the bottom of the pool. However, what he did not expect was that Zhuowen had also discovered that the small hill was not ordinary and had even left before him. This made Ma Yujie very annoyed. Why didn't he take a good look at this Zhuowen at that time? After Ma Yujie left the barren plains, he entered the passageway that led to the absolute beginning cave. Ma Yujie had been thinking about the small hill at the bottom of the lake, so his running speed was extremely fast, almost to the point where even his afterimage could not be seen. After a while, Ma Yujie rushed to the entrance of the absolute beginning cave. His gaze was still fixed on the small pool not far from the entrance of the absolute beginning cave. A look of anxiety appeared in his eyes. He could not wait to dive into the pool and reach the bottom of the pool to see if the small hill was still at the bottom. I hope that the small hill is still at the bottom of the pool. This thing belongs to this fat lord. Zhuowen is not qualified to have it. Ma Yujie's eyes turned green. His heart was full of resentment towards Zhuowen. 2 of the 3 hearts of the stars had been taken by Zhuowen. The 3rd primordial stone had also been taken by Zhuowen. Now that he had his eyes on the small hill, if Zhuowen took it away, wouldn't he have suffered a great loss in this trip to Fallen Star Mountain? Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Ma Yujie rushed to the entrance of the cave. At this moment, his expression changed completely. Boom, boom, boom. At the entrance of the absolute beginning cave, the traps that Zhuowen had set up earlier were completely detonated by Ma Yujie. Terrifying, explosive energy swept out like waves, drowning Ma Yujie in an instant. F***CK. His grandfather, bastard, Zhuowen, I'm not done with you. Ma Yujie's shrill screams, mixed with venomous curses, reverberated at the entrance of the absolute beginning cave. He was really too sullen. He had clearly fallen into the trap once, and he had been very cautious, but he had actually fallen into the trap again, just as he was about to leave the absolute beginning cave. While the unlucky Ma Yujie was hovering between life and death due to the traps at the entrance of the absolute beginning cave, Zhuowen was still at the bottom of the pool. His body was shriveled, and he looked like a bag of bones. He looked extremely haggard. The suction force from the small hill was too terrifying. If it weren't for him continuously absorbing the top-grade chaos spiritual veins in the great world, he would have turned into a lifeless corpse by now. Even so, the close to 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins that he had snatched from the depths of the absolute beginning cave were nearly depleted by him. Zhuowen was horrified. He knew that he would turn into a dried corpse in an instant if he didn't replenish his energy. Thinking of this, a light flickered in Zhuowen's eyes. He knew that after absorbing all the top-grade chaos spiritual veins, he would need to absorb the star core. Although the star core was extremely valuable, much more valuable than 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins, Zhuowen couldn't afford to hesitate. After all, his life was more important. Finally, all the top-grade chaos spiritual veins were depleted. Zhuowen had no choice but to start absorbing the star core's energy. Such pure energy! Zhuowen's eyes lit up in disbelief. The star core's energy was extremely pure. The moment it entered his body, it spread rapidly to his limbs and bones. His shriveled body actually became more nourished, and his complexion looked better than before. At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed that the small hill's suction force was gradually weakening. Zhuo heaved a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, this small hill wasn't a bottomless pit. He just didn't know what would happen to this small hill after absorbing so much of his energy. Finally, the small hill's suction force disappeared completely. Then Zhuowen saw that the small hill's size was gradually shrinking, and it eventually turned into a palm-sized seal. This seal's outer appearance was similar to the small hill, and at the bottom of the seal, there were 3 simple but majestic words: Grand Emperor's Seal. Grand Emperor's Seal, Zhuowen muttered under his breath. He could feel an extremely heavy and powerful aura from this seal. This aura was much stronger than the purple gold sword embryo in his hand. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The purple gold sword embryo that had been revolving around Zhuowen issued a buzzing sound in fear. It trembled as if it was afraid of the seal in Zhuowen's hand. Chapter 3958. Zhuowen was bewildered. Could it be that the Grand Emperor's seal was still in a muddle-headed state and had awakened after absorbing his energy and blood essence? Could it be that it felt a strong sense of intimacy towards him? Even though Zhuowen wasn't sure the exact reason, since the Grand Emperor's seal was so close to him, it was naturally a good thing. However, there was one thing that made Zhuowen feel helpless. Even though the Grand Emperor's seal was close to him, he was rejected by the Grand Emperor's seal's artifact spirit when he tried to control it. It was as if the Grand Emperor's seal didn't like to be controlled by others. Zhuowen shook his head. The Grand Emperor's seal was too mysterious, and it would take him some time to figure it out. It was better for him to leave this place first. I wonder if Ma Yujie realized that I'm not here and chased after me. Zhuowen muttered to himself as he flew up. He continued to absorb the energy from the heart of stars, and his shriveled flesh began to glow with vitality. His complexion also became rosier. It seemed like Ma Yujie was right. The heart of stars was indeed the best cultivation treasure. The energy contained in this small piece of Heart of Stars was equivalent to 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins, but the quality of the energy was much purer than a top-grade chaos spiritual vein. Whoosh! After Zhuowen flew out of the pond, his flesh and blood had completely recovered. He no longer looked like a lifeless corpse. At the same time, Zhuowen discovered that less than 1/10 of the Heart of Stars had been consumed. Goddamn Zhuowen, you really snuck into the pond to get that little hill. You bastard, despicable bastard, incomparably treacherous bastard. Scum that deserves to be cut into 1,000 pieces. Just as Zhuowen flew out of the pond, he discovered that not far away, a charred ball of flesh was rolling towards him. This ball of flesh opened its eyes with great difficulty and glared hatefully at Zhuowen, cursing and swearing. Zhuowen looked at the charred ball of flesh in confusion and asked, "Fellow Taoist, who are you?" After being silent for a long time, Ma Yujie finally exploded. F***CK, you bastard! You just tricked me to death, and now you're pretending not to know me? You scum! You bastard! You bastard! Ma Yujie was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He immediately took out the red bracelet in his hand and fiercely smashed it at Zhuowen. Zhuowen reacted very quickly. The moment Ma Yujie took out the red bracelet, he used his movement technique and retreated dozens of miles away. "So it's Brother Ma. Brother Ma, what happened to you? Who did this to you? It's too outrageous." Zhuowen shook his head, his face full of disappointment. Ma Yujie was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. "Wasn't it all because of a bastard like you that I ended up like this?" Boom! He summoned the crimson bracelet and threw it at Zhuowen. Instantly, crimson light filled the sky, dyeing the entire sky a rich crimson color. It was as if the sun was setting in the west, and the sky was burning with fire. Zhuowen's face changed slightly. He took out the purple gold sword embryo and slashed out fiercely. Streaks of purple gold sword chi blasted out, condensing into a terrifying sword mark that stretched between heaven and earth. The two collided, and the entire fallen star mountain shook violently. There were waves of earth quaking and mountains shaking. It was very terrifying. Zhuowen let out a muffled groan as he was sent flying backwards. Borrowing the force of his fall, he quickly retreated. His body changed direction and rushed out of the range of Fallen Star Mountain. Before he left, he called back the purple gold sword embryo and laughed. "Brother Ma, don't be so angry. Be careful not to hurt your liver. Today's cooperation between you and me is perfect. Farewell. We'll meet again in the future." Ma Yujie let out a muffled groan and also retreated a distance before stabilizing his body. When he heard Zhuowen's laughter, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood and cursed, "Bastard, I'm breaking off all ties with you. When I see you in the future, I'll beat you up until your parents can't recognize you." After Zhuowen left Fallen Star Mountain, he entered the dark abyss and quickly left. He didn't dare to stay here for long. Although Ma Yujie was tricked by him, his strength was still there. It was difficult to deal with him. Naturally, he couldn't be entangled with Ma Yujie for too long. After completely leaving the dark abyss, he quietly left this place. When he was far enough away from Fallen Star Mountain, he took out the divine ship and headed towards the Carefree Manor. After he handed over the control of the divine ship to Xiao He, he immediately went into seclusion. He had obtained the cultivation method of the primordial technique and the heart of stars. Wouldn't it be a waste if he didn't go into seclusion? 3 days later, the divine ship arrived at the Carefree Manor. Fallen Star Mountain was too far away from Hanwu Shenzhen. Naturally, it was impossible to use the divine ship to fly back to Hanwu Shenzhen. There was an ancient teleportation array in the Carefree Manor. It was enough to bring Zhuowen back to Hanwu Shenzhen. After 3 days of cultivation, Zhuowen had absorbed 1/3 of the heart of stars. His cultivation had also successfully broken through to the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation realm. His strength had increased exponentially. When Zhuowen's divine ship landed in the Carefree Manor, everyone in the manor became nervous. Everyone looked at Zhuowen with shock and uncertainty. "Ask the person in charge of the Carefree Manor to come out." Zhuowen sneered in his heart. He naturally knew why these people were so shocked. They must be shocked that he was still alive. Zhuowen's voice wasn't loud, but it spread across the entire Carefree Manor like thunder. After a while, an old man in blue walked out with a few people. When he saw Zhuowen, his face darkened. Dawen, you entered Fallen Star Mountain with the Manor Lord. The Manor Lord and the others haven't come out, but you came out. What's going on? Did you abandon the Manor Lord and the others? The old man in blue shouted coldly. Zhuowen knew the old man in blue. Run Rong had introduced him to Zhuowen. He was the second elder of the Carefree Manor. His strength was at the early stage of the God Domain transformation realm. Rin Xiaoyao had asked him to stay behind to guard the manor. Manor Lord Run was unfortunately killed in Fallen Star Mountain. I was lucky enough to escape with my life. Now that my mission has failed, I don't plan to stay here. Go and activate the teleportation array. I plan to return to Hangwu Shenzhen. Zhuowen said indifferently. The old man in blue narrowed his eyes and then shouted angrily, "Nonsense! The Manor Lord is an expert at the middle stage of the God Domain transformation realm. No matter how terrifying Fallen Star Mountain is, it can't kill the Manor Lord and the others. It must be you who sneakily attacked the Manor Lord and the others and buried them in Fallen Star Mountain. How dare you? Do you really think that just because you're a disciple of Hangwu Shenzhen, we won't dare to do anything to you? I'll take you down today. After killing you, I'll report to Hangwu Shenzhen and accuse you of crimes." After saying that, the old man in blue's eyes were filled with killing intent. He immediately attacked Zhuowen before Run Xiaoyao left. He had told him that after they entered Fallen Star Mountain, they planned to kill Zhuowen in Fallen Star Mountain. Chapter 3959. The blue-clothed old man's aura was like a rainbow. He floated in the air in front of Zhuowen like a god. He looked down at Zhuowen with eyes full of arrogance and disdain. He did not take Zhuowen seriously at all. After all, Zhuowen was just an outer disciple of Hangwu Shenzhen. In his eyes, Zhuowen was like an ant. Zhuowen's eyes gradually darkened. He thought that Ren Xiaoyao had a backup plan and would not stop until Zhuowen was dead. Get lost. Otherwise, you will die. This is your only chance to live now. Zhuowen did not want to be entangled with the blue-robed elder. The aura of the middle stage of yin-yang change surged out like a storm and rushed into the sky. The terrifying power of yin-yang rushed up and formed a huge yin-yang pattern above his head. The blue-robed elder's eyelids twitched. The aura released by Zhuowen was so terrifying that it made his heart beat wildly. However, the blue-robed elder was completely relieved when he found that Zhuowen was only in the yin-yang change realm. It was just the yin-yang change realm. So, what if his aura was powerful? How could he be a match for him? Die! The blue-robed elder's eyes were full of killing intent. His right palm was like a mountain and suddenly slammed down from the sky. The rumbling sound of thunder resounded throughout the sky above Carefree Manor. Many cultivators of Carefree Manor had completely scattered before the blue-robed elder made his move. They did not dare to approach him. The moment the blue-robed elder made his move, his own divine domain appeared around him. His god territory was a barren desert. This barren desert was filled with terrifying sandstorms that seemed to stretch across the world. Zhuowen was swept into this divine domain. He immediately felt his body heat up. The violent sandstorm swept across, leaving behind a scene of devastation. It was extremely terrifying. Zhuowen stood in the divine domain, unmoved. The yin-yang pattern above his head turned into the yin-yang god. The two gods merged into his body, causing his aura to reach an extremely terrifying level. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Zhuowen took a step forward, his aura heavy and powerful, causing the entire divine realm to tremble violently. Then he shot out like an arrow from a bow, piercing through the numerous sandstorms. The blue-clothed elder stood in the air above the sandstorm. His right hand slapped down, and a huge palm energy fell, blasting towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen coldly snorted and punched out. Countless weapon phantoms shot out, and the energy hand was smashed to pieces by his punch. What? You're just an yin-yang transformation cultivator. How can you be so powerful? The blue-clothed old man was shocked when Zhuowen's fist smashed the energy hand into pieces. A trace of fear rose in his heart, and he couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Ignorant, Zhuowen's eyes were cold. His long hair fluttered in the wind as he appeared in front of the blue-robed elder. His right fist suddenly blasted out and smashed towards the blue-robed elder's face. The blue-clothed elder was still in a state of shock. He didn't even have time to react to block the attack before his face was pierced through by Zhuowen's fist. Puff! Blood splattered across the sky. The blue-clothed elder's head exploded, and his spiritual soul was destroyed. He turned into a headless corpse, falling from the sky and landing heavily in the middle of the courtyard of Carefree Mountain Villa. The heavy sound of the body falling completely awakened all the cultivators of Carefree Mountain Villa. Their eyes were filled with fear. The blue-clothed elder was the second elder of Carefree Mountain Villa. He was the true expert of Carefree Mountain Villa. Even the blue-clothed elder was killed by this young man in one move. Who else in Carefree Mountain Villa could stop this young man? You think the same as this elder? You think that I'm the cause of the death of your Carefree Mountain Villa's Villa Master. So I deserve to die? Zhuowen floated in the air, looking down at everyone in Carefree Mountain Villa. All the cultivators who met his gaze lowered their heads, not daring to look at Zhuowen. Their hearts were trembling. Sir, this has nothing to do with you. The second elder acted on his own and insisted on attacking you. You were absolutely right to kill him. A burly middle-aged man suddenly knelt on the ground. His eyes were filled with fear. He completely submitted to Zhuowen and did not dare to resist. The moment this man knelt, the other cultivators of Carefree Mountain Villa also knelt on the ground, trembling. They knew very well that Zhuowen could easily kill the blue-clothed elder. Naturally, he could also easily destroy the entire Carefree Mountain Villa. Zhuowen looked down at everyone, seeing them kneel and worship him. His heart was as calm as an ancient well. This was the way the world was. If you were strong, you were the rules. If you were strong, you were respected. If you were strong, you were everything. I want to use the ancient teleportation formation of Carefree Mountain Villa. Zhuowen said indifferently. The middle-aged man, who was the first to kneel, quickly raised his head and put on a fawning expression. He said to Zhuowen, "Sir, I can help you activate the ancient teleportation formation." Zhuowen nodded and said, "Then I'll use you." With that, Zhuowen landed beside the middle-aged man. He lifted him up and flew into the huge courtyard in the depths of Carefree Mountain Villa. This courtyard was where the Carefree Mountain Villa's ancient teleportation formation was located. The courtyard was cold and cheerless. There was no one in sight except for the ancient teleportation formation at the center of the courtyard. The model patterns on the ancient teleportation formation indicated its age and vicissitudes. Go activate the ancient teleportation formation. Zhuowen instructed. The middle-aged man quickly nodded and bowed. He took out pieces of top-grade Chaos Spirit Stones and placed them in the grooves beside the ancient teleportation formation. Then, his hands formed complicated seals to activate the ancient teleportation formation. In an instant, the dim ancient teleportation formation lit up with a blazing white light. Strands of law patterns formed chains that circled around the ancient teleportation formation. Divine light soared to the sky, and it was hard to look at directly. "Sir, the ancient teleportation formation is ready." The middle-aged man smiled fawningly. Zhuowen nodded and stepped into the ancient teleportation formation. Then, the middle-aged man activated the ancient teleportation formation. In an instant, the ancient teleportation formation emitted a blinding white light that soared into the sky. After the white light subsided, the ancient teleportation formation returned to normal. Zhuowen, who had been standing at the center of the ancient teleportation formation, was nowhere to be seen. "I finally sent away that malefic star." The middle-aged man wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled wryly. He was really afraid that Zhuowen would slaughter the entire Carefree Mountain Villa in a fit of rage. Now that Zhuowen had left, the middle-aged man could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Zhuowen felt his body shuttling back and forth at high speed, and a numbing sensation spread throughout his body. When the numbing sensation disappeared completely, Huang Xiaolong landed on the ground. He opened his eyes and saw that he was in the Hanwu Shengzhen's ancient teleportation formation. "It's you?" The old man guarding the ancient teleportation formation shuddered the moment he saw Zhuowen. Fear flashed in his eyes. This old man was the person responsible for transporting Zhuowen to the Carefree Mountain Villa when he had first left the Hanwu Shengzhen. Chapter 3960. Zhuowen ignored the old man and walked straight out of the ancient teleportation circle. He did not plan to go to the mission hall. Although he had obtained the Heart of Stars, it did not match the content of the mission, so he had failed the mission. However, he did not care. He had entered Fallen Star Mountain not for the mission, but for the primordial stone. He had gained a lot this time. Not only had he obtained the primordial stone, but he had also obtained the Tai Emperor's seal and 2 Heart of Stars. The value of these rewards was many times higher than the reward for completing the mission. When Zhuowen returned to the Outer Sect Mountain, he happened to see Li Xinbing and Ziling coming down from the mountain. When the 2 girls saw Zhuowen, they were pleasantly surprised. "Brother Dawen, you came back safe and sound." Li Xinbing's beautiful eyes lit up. Zhuowen nodded. She looked at the 2 women in confusion and asked, "Junior sisters, where are you planning to go?" Ziling smiled and said, "We are going to Hanwu Square." "Brother, you may not know, but the 4th Shengzhen tournament is coming soon. This time, Hanwu Square will be holding an internal tournament. Hanwu Shengzhen plans to choose 10 outstanding disciples from the inner and outer sect disciples to go to Qing Luan Shengzhen to participate in the tournament." Li Xinbing was also quite excited. "I heard that if we perform well in the 4th Shengzhen tournament, our outer sect will have a chance to be promoted to inner sect." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. He was not interested in the 4th Shengzhen. The 4th Shengzhen tournament was the best opportunity for Zhuowen to save Hong Shenwu. He could not participate in the tournament. "Senior brother Dawen, your strength is so strong. If you can participate in this 4 sacred sects martial arts competition, you will definitely shine." Ziling raised her head and said expectantly. Li Xinbing also looked at Zhuowen expectantly. Both she and Ziling knew how powerful Zhuowen was. Even most of Hanwu Shengzhen's inner disciples might not necessarily be a match for Zhuowen. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "I won't be going to the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition. I've been comprehending something recently, so I plan to go into seclusion for a period of time." With that, Zhuowen bid farewell to the 2 women and continued to climb. Li Xinbing and Ziling couldn't help but be stunned. They didn't expect Zhuowen to not participate in the 4 Shengzhen martial arts tournament. This was a great opportunity for a carp to leap over the Dragon's Gate. However, the 2 women also knew that once Zhuowen decided on something, it was useless for them to persuade him. When they thought of this, The two women sighed softly and left the outer court mountain. After Zhuowen returned to the cave, he began to concentrate on absorbing the energy of the Heart of Stars. He estimated that after completely absorbing the energy of the Heart of Stars, his cultivation should be able to reach the peak of the yin-yang change, and maybe even the God Realm change. For the next month, Zhuowen basically stayed in the cave and cultivated. During this period, Ziling and Li Xinbing came to visit several times, but when they saw that Zhuowen didn't come out of seclusion, they left resentfully. Even Luo Lingyu came to visit Zhuowen once. On this day, Zhuowen slowly opened the door of the cave. His eyes were shining brightly, and there was an ethereal and vast aura around him. After cultivating in seclusion for a month and completely refining the Heart of Stars, I still can't break through to the God Realm change. Zhuowen shook his head, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. After absorbing the energy of the first Heart of Stars, his cultivation had only reached the peak of the yin-yang change. Even though he couldn't break through to the God Realm change, Zhuowen could feel that he was very close to the God Realm change. It wasn't appropriate to say that he was at the peak of the yin-yang change. It should be said that he had taken half a step into the God Realm. He should be half a step into the God Realm. Zhuowen's strength had reached an unfathomable level. He didn't need to rely on the purple gold sword embryo to fight a peak God Realm change expert, and he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. From this, one could see how terrifying his battle strength was. After coming out of seclusion, Zhuowen planned to head to the valley where the Great Speech Incantation Forest was located to look for his master, Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun had told him that she had the ability to search the entire 100 regions with the soul language technique. However, she needed 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins to do so. This kind of consumption was extremely terrifying. Even though Zhuowen had found 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins, he had exhausted all of them. However, he still had the Heart of Stars. With the surging energy from the Heart of Stars, the effect was much better than 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins. If Shan Lingyun used the Heart of Stars, she would be able to use a more powerful soul language technique to find the Moyan of Wushang's location. When Zhuowen walked out of the Outer Sex mountain peak, planning to leave the Hanwu Shengzhen, he coincidentally ran into Luo Lingyu at the Shengzhen's entrance. Luo Lingyu was walking beside a man and woman with a respectful and reserved expression on her face. Zhuowen looked at the man and woman with a dumbfounded expression. He also knew these two people. The woman was none other than Jing Lianming, who had walked together with Luo Lingyu at the Hongwu Square. Jing Lianming's face was frosty, and she was extremely arrogant. She looked at everyone with disdain, as if she was a high and mighty god, and everyone else were useless mortals. The other man was Jing Lianming's Dao companion, Emo Hongxian. He was also the Blue Luan Shengzhen's intersex #1 disciple. His strength was extraordinary, and it was said that he had reached the half-step God Realm transformation. At the same time, Zhuowen also saw the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group not far from the entrance. A huge divine ship stood not far away, and it seemed like the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group was planning to leave. In front of the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group was the Hanwu Shengzhen's group. The leader of the Hanwu Shengzhen's group was the Dragon Elephant Hall's elder, Pei Shanglong. The Hanwu Shengzhen's entrance training was presided over by Pei Shanglong. Brother Pei, we'll part here. Your Hanwu Shengzhen's outer and inner disciples are not bad. Our Blue Luan Shengzhen has benefited greatly this time. The leader of the Blue Luan Shengzhen's group was an old man. He smiled and cupped his hands towards Pei Shanglong. Pei Shanglong's expression was not good. The Blue Luan Shengzhen's intersex #1 disciple, Emo Hongxian, had defeated almost all of their Hangu Shengzhen's intersex disciples. Hangu Shengzhen's face had been completely disgraced. At the same time, Pei Shanglong was extremely worried. In a month's time, the 4 Shengzhen competition would begin. Even the Blue Wan Shengzhen had produced such a powerful Mo Hongxian. The other Shengzhen's members would not be weak either. Would their Hangu Shengzhen end up at the bottom? Junior brother Daowen, Luo Lingyu, who was standing beside Jing Lianming, saw Zhuowen walking out of the sect's entrance. She could not help but happily greet Zhuowen. Jing Lianming and Mo Hongxian could not help but look at Zhuowen. Mo Hongxian only glanced at Zhuo when once before withdrawing his gaze. Zhuowen was wearing the uniform of an outer sect disciple, and his aura was faintly discernible. In his eyes, this kind of trash didn't even deserve a glance. Chapter 3961. Luo Lingyu frowned slightly. She did not expect Jing Lianmeng to dislike Zhuowen so much. Although Zhuowen was only an outer disciple of Hangu Shengzhen, and his status was far lower than theirs, he was still an old acquaintance of hers. Jing Lianmeng was meddling in her affairs. She was being too nosy. Thinking of this, Luo Lingyu said seriously, "Senior Sister Jing, junior brother Daowen is an old friend of mine, and we have a good relationship. I can't dislike him just because of his low status. And I think that people should not forget their roots." After saying that, Luo Lingyu ignored Jing Lianmeng and walked towards Zhuowen. Jing Lianmeng looked at Luo Lingyu's back in disbelief. Ever since she entered the sect, Luo Lingyu had been respectful to her and had never disobeyed her. But now, Luo Lingyu was mocking her because of this guy. She really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Jing Lianmeng was furious. Junior sister Luo must have been bewitched by this outer disciple. She actually dared to go against you for him. Mo Hongxuan's eyes were gloomy. He was also very dissatisfied with Luo Lingyu's disobedience. His gaze towards Zhuowen became more and more unpleasant. "Lianmeng, do you need me to teach this guy a lesson for you?" Mo Hongxian asked coldly. Jing Lianmeng's face was cold. She shook her head and said, "There is no need to trouble senior brother. He is just an outer disciple trash. I can easily teach him a lesson." Mo Hongxian nodded. Jing Lianmeng's cultivation was not weak. She was at the middle stage of the yin-yang change realm. It was naturally easy for her to teach an outer disciple a lesson. After all, Zhuowen was just an outer disciple. He was too ordinary, so his appearance did not attract anyone's attention. Even Pei Shanglong and the others only glanced at Zhuowen casually before retracting their gazes. "Junior brother Daowen, you are finally out. When you were in seclusion, I came to see you once." Luo Lingyu walked up to Zhuowen and said with her beautiful eyes shining. Zhuowen said apologetically, "Senior sister Luo, I am so sorry. I did not expect you to come to see me. If I had known, I would have come out immediately." Luo Lingyu waved her hand and chuckled. "Don't worry, it's just a small matter. I met the 2 women who were with you before, and I heard them say that you don't intend to participate in the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition." Luo Lingyu was quite curious. Although she did not know Zhuowen's exact cultivation level, he should not be weak. He should be more than capable of participating in the 4 Shengzhen martial arts competition. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "That kind of competition is meaningless to me, so I don't plan to participate." Just as Zhuowen and Luo Lingyu were chatting, an untimely voice interrupted their conversation. "An outer sect trash like you has the face to say that the 4th Shengzhen martial arts competition is meaningless? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I think you're just scared and don't dare to participate." You're just finding a dignified excuse for yourself. Isn't it a little disgusting? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and slowly turned his head to look at Jing Lianmeng, who had appeared beside Luo Lingyu. He did not refute, or rather, he did not intend to lower himself to Jing Lianmeng's level. Senior Sister Luo, I still have some things to do, so I'll take my leave now. If there's time in the future, we'll contact each other again. Zhuowen cupped his hands at Luo Lingyu and was about to leave. Luo Lingyu also quickly nodded. Jing Lianmeng's sudden appearance made her feel strange. She could feel that Jing Lianmeng was deliberately targeting Zhuowen. If she continued to talk with Zhuowen, it would not be a good thing. So she agreed to let Zhuowen leave first. However, Jing Lianmeng obviously did not want to let Zhuowen go so easily. Just as Zhuowen was about to leave, Jing Lianmeng blocked his way. Her beautiful eyes looked at Zhuowen presumptuously, and her eyebrows were filled with arrogance and disdain. I've heard junior sister Luo mention you before. You're called Dao Wen, and like junior sister Luo, you're from the Wukong state. I don't care what your relationship was in the past, but you have to know that you're just an insignificant outer disciple of the Hongwu Shengzhen. And junior sister Luo is an inner disciple of our Blue Phoenix Shengzhen. The two of you, one is in the sky, and the other is on the ground. You're not even from the same world. So, you'd better not contact junior sister Luo anymore. Outer disciple trash like you is not worthy of contacting junior sister Luo, let alone talking to her. You understand? Jing Lianmeng's beautiful eyes were filled with arrogance. She looked at Zhuowen from head to toe, and the words she said were extremely vicious and disdainful. Zhuowen frowned, and he coldly looked at the ice beauty in front of him. He did not seem to have offended this girl from the beginning to the end. However, this girl always targeted him and even insulted him as outer disciple trash. Did she really think that he, Zhuowen, was easy to bully? I don't need you to talk about my matters. Now get lost, Zhuowen slowly said, and his voice was filled with an unquestionable tone. Jing Lianmeng was completely stunned. She looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. This lowly outer disciple in front of her actually dared to speak to her like this. Wasn't he seeking his own death? Luo Lingyu saw that the atmosphere between the two was so heavy and hurriedly came out to smooth things over. Senior Sister Jing, Dao Wen is my friend. I hope you can give me face and not pursue him. Jing Lianmeng sneered and said, Junior Sister Luo, don't protect this trash. This outer disciple is too arrogant. If we don't teach him a lesson, won't he take advantage of us? Mo Hongxian walked out and stopped Luo Lingyu. He smiled and said, Junior Sister Luo, don't worry about this matter. Let Lianmeng handle it. Luo Lingyu's beautiful eyes were filled with anxiety, but Mo Hongxian's aura had locked onto her. If she acted rashly, it was very likely that Mo Hongxian would attack her. After all, Mo Hongxian was the #1 inner disciple of the Blue Phoenix Shengzhen. He was much stronger than her. If Mo Hongxian attacked, there was no way she would have the chance to help Zhuowen. Zhuowen slowly raised his head and coldly looked at the frosty Jing Lianmeng in front of him. He said, I have no enmity with you, but you repeatedly obstructed me and even insulted me. Do you really think I don't have a temper? Jing Lianmeng was startled, and then she sneered again and again. The aura of the middle stage of the yin-yang transformation erupted and crushed on Zhuowen like a mountain. You're just an outer disciple. What right do you have to be angry with me? An ant like you should obediently accept my punishment. It's your honor that I'm looking for trouble with you. As Jing Lianmeng spoke, her jade-like hand suddenly slapped towards Zhuowen's cheek. Her eyes were full of disdain. Pa! Chapter 3962. Jing Lianmeng was completely dumbfounded. She didn't expect that she would be slapped by a mere outer disciple. How could she bear it? You're courting death. I'll kill you. Jing Lianmeng screamed, her eyes filled with blazing killing intent. The yin and yang energy in her body suddenly surged out, and her whole body was filled with extremely terrifying energy ripples. Kill me? You're not qualified to do that. Zhuowen shook his head and slapped out with his left hand. Suddenly, the yin and yang energy around Jing Lianmeng's body was easily dispersed by his slap. This slap was ruthlessly imprinted on Jing Lianmeng's cheek. Jing Lianmeng spun a few rounds in the air and spat out a mouthful of blood. If one looked carefully, one would see that the blood was mixed with several teeth. Plop! Jing Lianmeng fell to the ground in a sorry state. Her cheeks were completely red and swollen, and she almost fainted. Mo Hongxian, who was originally blocking Luo Lingyu, heard the commotion behind him and couldn't help but turn around. When he saw that Jing Lianmeng had fainted, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Luo Lingyu also revealed a surprised expression. Jing Lianmeng was an yin-yang transformation middle stage expert, and her strength was definitely not weak. However, she was actually knocked unconscious by Zhuowen's 2 slaps. Just how strong was Zhuowen? Thinking of this, Luo Lingyu's heart was filled with complicated feelings. She remembered that Zhuowen was also very strong, but not to this extent. Blue Wan Shengzhen and Hangwu Shengzhen, who were still exchanging pleasantries, were naturally attracted by the commotion over at Zhuowen's side. When the old man led by Blue Wan Shengzhen saw that Jing Lianmeng had been slapped unconscious by Zhuowen, his face suddenly became a little ugly. Pei Shanglong frowned slightly. He looked at Zhuowen, and his heart trembled slightly. He had some impression of this young man in front of him. He was one of the disciples who had participated in the entrance trial not long ago. However, Pei Shanglong had not expected that this disciple, whom he did not care much about at the beginning, would be able to easily knock out Jing Lianmeng. Pei Shanglong naturally knew of Jing Lianmeng. She was an inner disciple of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen. Her talent and strength were not bad, but she had defeated many of their Hanwu Shengzhen's inner disciples. Pei Shanglong silently looked at Zhuowen, his eyes revealing a look of great interest. It seemed that he had misjudged him. This young man was not simple. Mo Hongxian's face was ugly. He helped the unconscious Jing Lianmeng up and looked coldly at Zhuowen, saying, "How dare you injure my junior sister? You're just an outer sect disciple. Who gave you the guts?" Zhuowen was so angry that he laughed. This Mo Hongxian was really shameless. It was clearly Jing Lianmeng who attacked him first. Could it be that he was just going to stand there and let Jing Lianmeng hit him without any resistance? A good dog doesn't block the way. If you don't scram, I'll kill you. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. These 2 people had made things difficult for him time and time again. Even a clay figurine would get angry, let alone him. Good, good, good. How dare you threaten to kill me? Then don't blame me for killing you. Mo Hongxian's eyes were filled with murderous intent. His heart was filled with anger. This ant in front of him dared to act recklessly. After knocking out his Dao companion, he even threatened to kill him if he didn't scram. What right did he have to say such words to him? Mo Hongxian put Jing Lianmeng aside and floated in the air. The terrifying aura of a half-step god realm instantly burst out from his body. A terrifying pressure spread out, causing the surrounding atmosphere to become very heavy. Luo Lingyu frowned. She felt that Mo Hongxian was completely unreasonable. Just as she was about to speak, blue phoenix Shengzhen, and the others had already arrived beside her. Lingyu, what's going on here? Why did this Hangwu Shengzhen's outer disciple have a conflict with you? The old man from blue phoenix Shengzhen asked with a frown. Luo Lingyu heaved a sigh of relief and recounted everything that had happened earlier. She said, Elder Wu, this has nothing to do with junior brother Daowen. It's senior brother Mo and senior sister Jing who were overbearing. That's why things ended up like this. The old man frowned and said, Lingyu, are you still a member of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen? No matter what Hong Xian and Lian Meng did, they naturally had their reasons. However, this outer disciple actually dared to attack Lian Meng. This is his fault. When he spoke up to hear, the old man gazed at Pei Shanglong, who'd rushed over, and said, Elder Pei, your disciple beat up our disciple, so this is a matter between disciples. I presume that Elder Pei won't interfere, right? Pei Shanglong frowned slightly. He naturally understood the old man's meaning. This old man was telling him not to interfere in the battle between Mo Hongxian and Zhuowen. It had to be said that Zhuowen's crushing of Jing Lianmeng had given him quite a pleasant surprise. However, he still didn't think that Zhuowen was a match for Mo Hongxian. After all, Mo Hongxian was the #1 disciple of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen. His cultivation had even reached the half-step transformation stage of the God domain. What, Elder Pei, do you plan to interfere in the matters of the younger generation? The old man said coldly. Pei Shanglong's eyes flickered. He shook his head and said, Elder Wu, don't worry. Since it's a grudge between the younger generation, I naturally won't interfere. However, I hope to stop when it's appropriate. The old man smiled slightly, but didn't give Pei Shanglong any reply. Stop when it's appropriate. That was a dream. If someone beat up a disciple of Blue Phoenix Shengzhen, they would at least cripple him. It would be best if they were beaten to death. Mo Hongxian's aura was like a rainbow. He looked at Zhuowen arrogantly and said, Aunt, which hand did you use to beat junior sister Lianmeng? Chop it off for me now, and maybe I'll spare your dog life. Aunt, we still don't know who's the aunt here. Zhuowen sneered. He didn't want to waste any more words with Mo Hongxian. He took a step forward, and a terrifying yin and yang energy surged out like a tsunami. Whoosh! Zhuowen was like an arrow that left the bow. He tore through the air and appeared in front of Mo Hongxian. You're courting death. Mo Hongxian sneered. He formed a palm with his right hand and slammed it towards Zhuowen's head. He exerted all of his strength. Waves of yin and yang energy poured out. Moreover, because he was a half-step transformation of the God domain, the embryonic form of the God domain surged around him, affecting Zhuowen's movements. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was also at the half-step transformation stage of the God domain. His strength was much stronger than Mo Hongxian's, not to mention Mo Hongxian, who was at the half-step transformation stage of the God domain. Even the God domain of a true transformation stage of the God domain wouldn't be able to affect him. You're not affected at all. Mo Hongxian was shocked when he saw Zhuowen's unhurried steps and unhindered right fist. What shocked him even more was that the power that erupted from Zhuowen's punch was simply too powerful. It was so powerful to the point that it made him fearful. You should be the one who should die. Zhuowen's eyes were cold and merciless. His fist landed on Mo Hongxian's right palm. His fist was too terrifying. It crushed Mo Hongxian's right palm into powder. His fist continued forward, turning Mo Hongxian's right arm and right shoulder into a bloody pulp. Mo Hongxian screamed in horror and retreated in the air. He clutched his right arm and looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. Unfortunately, his shock didn't last long. Zhuowen appeared above him like a ghost. His right hand formed a palm and slammed into Mo Hongxian's head. Puchi, Chapter 3963. Plop! Mo Hongxuan's corpse fell from midair, stirring up a cloud of dust. Everyone from Qing, Wan Shengzhen fell into disbelief. Even Pei Shanglong and the others from Hongwu Shengzhen were dumbfounded. No one expected Mo Hongxian, who had defeated all the inner disciples of Hongwu Shengzhen, to be killed. In the end, he was actually killed by an unknown outer sect disciple of the Hong martial sacred sect in one move. This was simply too inconceivable, and it impacted everyone's nerves. The moment Zhuowen killed Mo Hongxian, he looked coldly at the stunned crowd. Ignoring their surprise, he turned into a rainbow and left the place. After Zhuowen left, for a while, the people from Qing Wan Shengzhen came back to their senses. The old man was furious and said, "How dare you kill a disciple of Qing Wan Shengzhen in front of me? You're courting death." With that, the old man was about to chase after Zhuowen, but he was stopped by Pei Shanglong. "Elder Pei, what do you mean by this?" The old man's face was gloomy as he looked at Pei Shanglong, who was blocking his way. Pei Shanglong's eyes flickered as he said in a low voice, "Elder Wu, I think there must be some misunderstanding. Don't worry, I'll slowly find out the truth for you." The old man was flustered and exasperated. He said, "What's there to find out? This kid killed the #1 inner disciple of Qing Wan Shengzhen in front of us. You should capture him immediately and hand him over to Qing Wan Shengzhen." Pei Shanglong's face was gloomy. He had given Elder Wu enough face, but unfortunately, Elder Wu did not give him any face. "Elder Wu, you and I saw it clearly just now. It was Mo Hongxian from Qing Wan Shengzhen who attacked Han Wu Shengzhen's disciple first. Moreover, he used a killing move as soon as he attacked. That disciple was only defending himself. He accidentally killed Mo Hongxian. This is not the fault of Han Wu Shengzhen's disciple. On the contrary, Qing Wan Shengzhen is unforgiving." Pei Shanglong's tone became very tough. He did not give Elder Wu any face. If Zhuowen was just an ordinary outer disciple, Mo Hongxian would have killed him and Pei Shanglong would not have cared. However, Zhuowen was obviously not. He was extremely strong. Even Mo Hongxian was easily killed by him. It could be seen that Zhuowen's strength was extraordinary. Pei Shanglong knew that with Zhuowen's participation in the upcoming Four Sacred Sects martial competition, their Hong martial sacred sect would be able to shock the world. No matter what, Pei Shanglong would not let Elder Wu have such a talent. Elder Wu's face changed slightly. He naturally understood why Pei Shanglong was so biased towards Zhuowen. Although he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. After all, he was in Han Wu Shengzhen's territory. If he dared to make a scene here and angered Pei Shanglong, it was very likely that he would not be able to leave. "Humph, Elder Pei, I will remember today's matter in my heart. Goodbye." Elder Wu was very sullen. He snorted coldly and left with Qing Wan Shengzhen's disciple. In Qing Wan Shengzhen's team, Luo Lingyu, who was originally worried about Zhuowen, was relieved when she saw Pei Shanglong's biased words towards Zhuowen. At the same time, she was inexplicably shocked by Zhuowen's strength. She did not expect Zhuowen's strength to improve so quickly. It had not been long since they last met, and even Mo Hongxian was far from being Zhuowen's opponent. With junior brother Daowen's current strength, I'm afraid he already has the strength to kill Shunhong. Luo Lingyu muttered to herself. She was extremely excited. She came to Liyuan main region alone and went through untold hardships to join Qing Luan Shengzhen. Wasn't it all for the sake of success? Wasn't it to avenge her master and kill Shunhong? Luo Lingyu gradually calmed down. Previously, she had made an agreement with Zhuowen. If Zhuowen really had the strength to kill Shi Shenhong, he would definitely bring her back to Wukong province and to Hong Wu sect. After Pei Shanglong silently watched Qing Luan Shengzhen's team leave, a middle-aged man beside him said worriedly, "Elder, it doesn't seem worth it to offend Elder Wu of Qing Luan Shengzhen for a mere outer disciple." Pei Shanglong smiled and said that may not be the case. The fact that he could kill a Mo Hongxian so easily shows that his strength is extraordinary. Coincidentally, the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition is just around the corner. Our Hong Wu Shengzhen's outer and inner disciples are not as good as Qing Luan Shengzhen. Do you think our Hong Wu Shengzhen will lose if this person participates? Hearing this, the middle-aged man bowed in respect, thinking that Pei Shanglong was far-sighted. "Go back and check on this person's information, then pass it to me. When he returns to the sect, immediately promote him to an inner disciple and let him represent Hong Wu Shengzhen to participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition." After Pei Shanglong had finished speaking, he went back to the sect. The rest of the people started to check on Zhuowen's information. Zhuowen naturally didn't know that Pei Shanglong had taken note of him and even planned to let him participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. After he left the entrance of Hong Wu Shengzhen, he immediately went to the cave outside the Great Word Incantation Forest. After he entered the cave, he realized that the Great Word Incantation Forest that he had destroyed had reappeared. He knew that it must have been rearranged by Shan Lingyun. He had destroyed the Great Word Incantation Forest before, so the Great Word Incantation Forest wasn't an obstacle to him. However, Zhuowen didn't try to destroy the Great Word Incantation Forest. After he found the exit, he took the opportunity to leave the Great Word Incantation Forest and went to the valley behind the Great Word Incantation Forest. In the valley, there were beautiful mountains and clear waters. There were pavilions and terraces. In the courtyard in front of the pavilion in the middle of the valley, a little Lolita was lying comfortably on a wooden stick. Her hands were crossed over her head, and she was sleeping soundly. Zhuowen shook his head and went to the courtyard. He realized that the courtyard was in a mess. There were dead leaves and debris everywhere. He didn't plan to wake Shan Lingyun up. Instead, he took the broom in the courtyard and silently swept the debris in the courtyard. He tidied up the items that were lying around in the courtyard. With Zhuowen's cultivation, he only needed to use his divine power to solve these problems. However, he also knew that if he used his divine power, he would definitely wake Shan Lingyun up. Therefore, he chose to do it himself. After he finished tidying up the courtyard, a few hours had passed. Zhuowen sat in the courtyard. As he waited for Shan Lingyun to wake up, he silently practiced the art of spiritual speech. During this period of time, his progress in the art of spiritual speech was extremely fast. He had already mastered it, especially when it was combined with the third eye. The range that he could search had increased greatly. At this moment, the wooden staff that was floating in the air stealthily descended. The little loli lying on top of it slowly opened her eyes, yawned loudly, and stretched her body. Chapter 3964. I've actually slept for 10 days and 10 nights. No wonder I feel a little hungry. I need to absorb some energy to replenish my energy, Shan Lingyun said in boredom. The tail of the wooden staff tapped Shan Lingyun's shoulder lightly, and the latter asked curiously, "Amu, what's wrong?" The tail of the wooden staff pointed in Zhuowen's direction, and Shan Lingyun looked over, and her big eyes instantly lit up. "This brat is finally back. No wonder I felt that the courtyard was so tidy. So it was this brat who tidied it. Master really didn't dote on him for nothing. He's actually so obedient." Shan Lingyun smiled as she walked towards Zhuowen and muttered to herself. Zhuowen seemed to have sensed something, and he slowly opened his eyes and immediately saw a pair of big eyes looking at him. This pair of big eyes was very close to him, and after noticing that he had opened his eyes, the big eyes quickly retreated, revealing a young, lowly face. "Master, you're finally awake," Zhuowen said with a smile. Shan Lingyun placed her hands behind her back and said in an old-fashioned manner, "Disciple, didn't you say that you went to the Falling Star Mountain? What did you get there?" Zhuowen smiled faintly and took out a star core from the Great World and handed it to Shan Lingyun. "This is the star core. You got it from the Falling Star Mountain." Shan Lingyun received the star core, and her big eyes revealed a look of shock. She immediately recognized the star core. "It's the star core. I think that after obtaining this star core, Master should be able to use the soul speech art to search the entire 100 territories for me to find Moyin Wushang," Zhuowen said. Shan Lingyun looked left and right and clicked her tongue in wonder. "If I use the soul speech art to search the 100 territories, I'll need at least 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins. However, the star core is much better than 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins. Then the probability of me finding your friend will be higher." Zhuowen was excited. He could finally find Moyin Wushang. When Shan Lingyun saw that Zhuowen was in such a hurry, she curled her lips and was a little unhappy. However, she did not say anything. Instead, she said, "If I want to search the 100 outer regions, I have to use the great language spiritual art. This is a forbidden art. I need to prepare for 3 days. After 3 days, I will use this art." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. After all, he had already waited for so long. Waiting for another 3 days was a piece of cake. "How's your cultivation of the spirit speech technique going? Show it to your master." Shan Lingyun placed her hands behind her back and paced back and forth in front of Zhuowen. She looked like an elder. It was just that it was a little ridiculous for such a little lowly to pretend to be an elder. Zhuowen didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he didn't refuse. Instead, he began to use the art of spiritual speech and opened the heavens eye between his brows. An invisible ripple spread out from his heaven's eye, and the world changed color because of it. Shan Lingyun's big eyes were filled with astonishment. She muttered to herself, "How long has it been? This kid has already cultivated the art of spiritual speech to a small success. This is unbelievable. His comprehension is a little heaven-defying." Zhuowen closed his heaven's eye and opened it again. He looked at Shan Lingyun and said, "Master, how is it?" Shan Lingyun coughed and said, "So, the art of spiritual speech is unfathomable. Your talent is indeed not bad, but you can't be arrogant because of this. You have to work hard to learn. You understand?" "Master is right." Zhuowen nodded seriously. When Shan Lingyun saw that Zhuowen was so serious and obedient, she felt a little embarrassed. Her cheeks were flushed red, and she looked very attractive. For the next 3 days, Zhuowen stayed in the valley. Shan Lingyun taught Zhuowen by word of mouth, and by example. She helped Zhuowen solve any problems that he encountered in the art of spiritual speech. After Shan Lingyun's guidance, Zhuowen was suddenly enlightened. Some areas that he didn't understand at first were immediately understood. The more Shan Lingyun taught Zhuowen, the more surprised she was. Zhuowen's comprehension was too strong. She didn't need to explain too much. Zhuowen immediately understood what she meant. He could even infer many things from one example and point out some areas that she didn't think of. 3 days later, Shan Lingyun and Zhuowen came to the small pond under the waterfall in the depths of the valley. Shan Lingyun took out a praying mat and sat cross-legged on it. Her small hand was holding the heart of stars. "Disciple, Master is going to perform the art of spiritual speech. This art must not be disturbed. You must protect me well." Shan Lingyun said, "Seriously, Zhuowen quickly nodded, indicating that he would not let anything disturb Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun didn't say anything else. She closed her eyes, and the heavens between her eyebrows opened. The heart of stars in Shan Lingyun's hand floated up on its own. Waves of pure energy flowed into the heavens between her eyebrows. At the same time, Shan Lingyun's hands formed an extremely complicated seal. Suddenly, a blazing white light shot out from Shan Lingyun's heavens and shot up into the sky. After the white light shot up to the highest point of the sky, it condensed and changed continuously. Finally, it formed a huge eyeball that was thousands of feet in size. The eyeball was so big that it almost covered the sky. The black pupil in the sky kept turning as if it was looking for something. A terrifying aura surged out from the eyeball. The entire Hangwu Shenzhen was alarmed. Some of the weaker disciples couldn't withstand the aura and knelt down on the ground. The higher-ups of Hangwu Shenzhen raised their heads and looked at the huge eyeball in the sky. They were shocked. Someone even exclaimed, "This is Master Shan's art of spiritual speech." How can it be? In the deepest part of the Hong martial sacred sect, there was a majestic palace. A vast aura suddenly burst out from within. In the deepest part of the palace, a burly white-haired youth suddenly opened his eyes. A terrifying aura surged out from his body. "Lingyun, why is she using the art of spiritual speech? This is a forbidden art. It will shorten one's lifespan. This is ridiculous." The white-haired youth suddenly rushed out of the palace and turned into a ray of light. He rushed into the valley of the art of spiritual speech outside of Hangwu Shenzhen. At the same time, the huge eyeball in the sky suddenly dispersed and turned into countless tiny eyeballs. These eyeballs scattered in all directions. Many of them even traveled through time and space and jumped to another space to search. Zhuowen was also shocked by Shan Lingyun's move. He didn't expect the art of spiritual speech to be so powerful. The aura of the huge eyeball almost made him want to worship it. Just as Zhuowen was shocked by the power of the art of spiritual speech, the white-haired youth had already landed in the valley. He ignored the obstruction of the art of spiritual speech and walked into the valley leisurely. It was only when the white-haired youth came to Zhuowen's side that Zhuowen felt something. He suddenly stepped back and stared at the white-haired youth. This was because he didn't even notice when the white-haired youth appeared. Chapter 3965. Who are you? Zhuowen looked at the white-haired young man in front of him in shock. At first glance, the white-haired young man did not have any aura, as if he was an ordinary person without any cultivation. However, Zhuowen was no fool. How could this person be an ordinary person if he could appear by his side without making a sound? The white-haired young man looked at Zhuowen coldly and said, "Who are you? Why did you appear in Lingyun's valley?" After he finished speaking, a vast and terrifying aura surged out from the white-haired young man's body. It was as if a storm had swept out, causing Zhuowen to retreat involuntarily. Zhuowen frowned and said, "Shan Lingyun is my master." The white-haired young man was stunned. He retracted his terrifying aura and said in disbelief, "Lingyun has taken in a disciple. Could it be that you have passed the Great Word Incantation Forest?" Zhuowen nodded and did not speak. The white-haired young man's background was unknown, and Zhuowen was wary of him. Although the white-haired young man addressed Shan Lingyun intimately, who knew if he was a friend or foe? Thinking of this, Zhuowen could not help but stand in front of Shan Lingyun and looked at the white-haired young man unkindly. When the white-haired young man saw this, he shook his head and said, "If I want to attack Lingyun, you will not be able to stop me." Seeing that Zhuowen was getting more and more nervous, the white-haired young man wanted to laugh even more. He continued, "Don't worry. Lingyun is an old acquaintance of mine. I will not disturb her when she uses the great word incantation." After he finished speaking, the white-haired young man casually sat on a rock by the side of the pool and looked at ease. Although Zhuowen was still cautious, he believed that the white-haired young man was not here to attack Shan Lingyun. After all, with the white-haired young man's strength, if he really wanted to attack, Zhuowen would not be able to stop him. Unless Zhuowen took out a supreme treasure like the Tai Emperor's seal, he might not be able to stop the white-haired young man. Of course, if the white-haired young man really wanted to attack, he would have done so long ago. Why bother talking so much nonsense with him? The white-haired young man sat down leisurely and began to size up Zhuowen. He smiled and said, "Judging from your attire, you should be an outer disciple of Hongwu Shengzhen. However, your cultivation has already reached the half-step transformation stage of the God domain. With this kind of cultivation, you've long been qualified to be promoted to an inner court disciple." Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he said in a deep voice, "I've just broken through and haven't had the time to take the sex test, so I'm still an outer sect disciple." "Senior, you seem to be very familiar with Hongwu Shengzhen. May I know which senior you are?" Zhuowen was very direct. If this person could rush to the great speech incantation forest immediately, he must have come from Hongwu Shengzhen. He must be one of Hongwu Shengzhen's men. The white-haired young man did not answer Zhuowen's question directly. Instead, he asked in a serious tone, "The great speech incantation art is a spirit speech master's strongest forbidden art. The price to use this forbidden art is extremely high. Do you know why Lingyun suddenly wants to use this forbidden art?" Zhuowen was stunned. He did not expect the white-haired young man to be so cautious. He pondered for a moment and said, "Isn't the price to use this forbidden art the energy of 10,000 top-grade chaos spiritual veins? Is there another price to pay?" The white-haired young man sneered and said, "If that's the case, then this art can't be called a forbidden art. The energy consumption of this art can be said to be enormous, but this is just the foundation. The real price to use this art is the consumption of one's lifespan. Only then can it be successfully used. Moreover, it's at the cost of 90% of one's lifespan." Hearing this, Zhuowen felt a rumble in his mind. He had never thought that the price to use the great speech incantation art would be so high. For cultivators who had cultivated to his level, the most important thing was not treasures or offensive treasures, but their own lifespan. Although cultivators who had reached his level had extremely long lifespan, it was not infinite. There was always an end. If one wanted to truly obtain more lifespan, then one had to reach a higher level and a stronger cultivation. And all of these required time. To cultivators, lifespan was a priceless treasure. Nothing could compare to it. Zhuowen did not expect that Shan Lingyun would be willing to sacrifice 90% of her lifespan to use a forbidden art like the great speech incantation art for him to find Moyan Wushang. This made Zhuowen feel very guilty. If he had known that the great speech incantation art had such a painful price to pay, he would never have let Shan Lingyun use this art. With his comprehension, it would only take a few years for his great speech incantation art to reach great accomplishment. At that time, he would be able to use the great speech incantation art to find Moyan Wushang. The white-haired youth silently observed Zhuowen. Seeing that the latter's expression was uncertain, he said coldly, "I have known Lingyun for a long time. I know her very well. I know that she would not use such a forbidden art casually. Unless it was someone important to her, she would not sacrifice so much. Tell me the truth. Did she use the great speech incantation art for you?" The white-haired youth looked coldly at Zhuowen and asked in an unfriendly tone. Zhuowen was silent for a moment. In the end, he nodded and said, Master did not tell me that the great speech incantation art had such a price. If I had known, I would not have been able to get rid of Master's forbidden art. Bang! As soon as Zhuo Wengang finished speaking, a terrifying aura with blazing killing intent suddenly attacked him. Zhuowen was caught off guard and was hit by the aura. With a groan, he could not help but fly backwards and smash into the rock wall behind him. His entire body was embedded in it. It is indeed you be *starred. Are you trying to kill Lingyun? The white-haired youth exuded a terrifying killing intent. He stared coldly at Zhuowen, and his tone was filled with anger and killing intent. Puff! Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood and struggled to get down from the rock wall. His face was pale as he stared coldly at the white-haired youth. The white-haired youth did not attack again. In his angry eyes, there was a tinge of sorrow. Do you know that Lingyun does not have much lifespan left? She might die if she uses the great speech incantation art again. The white-haired youth's expression became more serious. His shoulders trembled slightly and tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Zhuowen looked silently at the white-haired youth, who was crying. The anger in his heart gradually dissipated and was replaced by confusion. What did the white-haired youth mean? Why did he say that Lingyun did not have much lifespan left? The two of them stood facing each other and fell into a long silence. Suddenly, Lingyun, who was sitting cross-legged on the shore of the pool, groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was even paler. In the sky, many small eyes gathered and surged into Shan Lingyun's glabella. Plop! Lingyun fell to the ground and coughed continuously. Chapter 3966. At this moment, Shan Lingyun slowly opened her eyes. Although she was very weak, she was still happy and said, "Disciple, I found her. I found the girl you were looking for. Gui Jing, why are you here?" The white-haired youth looked at Shan Lingyun pitifully and sighed. "Lingyun, didn't you promise me that you would never use the great speech spirit art again? Why do you still use such a forbidden technique? Don't you know your own condition?" Shan Lingyun curled her lips and said weakly, "Gui Jing, you are so annoying. You are always a busybody. I have finally taken in a disciple. How can I reject my disciple's help? All right, let me go. I still have to tell my disciple the information of the person he is looking for." As she spoke, Shan Lingyun struggled to break free from the white-haired youth and walked towards Zhuowen. The white-haired youth sighed in his heart and did not stop Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun walked to Zhuowen with difficulty and waved at him. She revealed a victorious smile and said, "Disciple, how is it? Your master is awesome, right? I found the person you are looking for." Zhuowen slowly squatted down and looked at the lowly in front of him, seriously. He saw that Shan Lingyun's face was extremely pale and her small body was still trembling. It was as if she would be blown away by the wind at any time. He knew that the white-haired youth was not lying. Shan Lingyun had indeed paid a heavy price to use the great speech spirit art. Otherwise, she would not be so weak. "Why? I have helped you find your little lover. Are you not happy?" Shan Lingyun looked at Zhuowen's serious face and could not help but put her hands on her waist and show her displeasure. But she was too weak. Just as she put her hands on her waist, she staggered and was about to fall to the ground. Zhuowen stretched out his hand and held her. He said apologetically, "Master, I really did not know that you had to pay such a heavy price to use the great speech spirit art. If I had known, I would not have let you use this forbidden technique." Shan Lingyun was stunned. She then smiled and said, "I thought it was something serious. So it is just a small matter. Don't listen to Gui Jing. I am fine. This great speech spirit art is not as serious as he thinks." As she spoke, Shan Lingyun extended her small right hand and pressed her palm against Zhuowen's forehead. Disciple, I just used the Great Language Soul spell to check and found the approximate location of Moyin of Wushang. Although it's not very accurate, at least I've locked onto an area. I'll pass this information to you now. Just as Shan Lingyun finished speaking, Zhuowen sensed a stream of information flowing from Shan Lingyun's palm into the space between his eyebrows, appearing in his memories. This information showed Moyin of Wushang's approximate location. However, Zhuowen wasn't happy at all because this information was obtained through Shan Lingyun sacrificing her lifespan. This made Zhuowen's heart heavy. Disciple, why are you not happy at all? I went through a lot of trouble to get it back for you. Shan Lingyun pouted when she saw Zhuowen's serious expression. Zhuowen forced a smile, but he didn't know what to say. I'm so tired. Disciple, take a good look at the information. Master can only help you up to this point. I'm so tired. Shan Lingyun yawned loudly, then fell asleep in Zhuowen's arms. Zhuowen carried Shan Lingyun and walked into the pavilion. He gently placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. After that, Zhuowen turned to look at the white-haired youth who appeared at the door and said, Senior, can you tell me more about Master? The white-haired youth's gaze was complicated. He thought for a while, then nodded and said, Come out with me. Since you're her only disciple, you should know some of her past. The two of them left the pavilion and sat on the rattan chairs in the courtyard. The white-haired youth was silent for a long time, then slowly began to tell Shen Ying about Shan Lingyun's past. From the white-haired youth's narration, Zhuowen finally knew that the white-haired youth in front of him was the sect leader of Hanwu Shengzhen, Guijing. It was no wonder that when Shan Lingyun mentioned this name, Zhuowen felt that it was so familiar. As for Shan Lingyun's identity, it shocked Zhuowen. It turned out that Shan Lingyun was the illegitimate daughter of Huxley's clan leader, Lu Renjue. Shan Lingyun's master, Lu Xian, was once Huxley's strongest spiritual speaker. Her status was extremely high, and she was respected by tens of thousands of people. Originally, Shan Lingyun's birth was a family scandal of Huxley's clan leader. In order to erase this scandal, Huxley's clan leader, Lu Renjue, threw Shan Lingyun to Shan Lingyun's master, Lu Xian, to clean up. Originally, Shan Lingyun was Lu Renjue's daughter, so naturally her surname was Lu. However, Shan Lingyun didn't. Even her father had abandoned her, so she didn't recognize Lu Renjue's surname. Thus, she followed her mother's surname and was named Shan Lingyun. This was to deny the fact that she was Lu Renjue's daughter. Back then, Lu Xian didn't kill Shan Lingyun. Instead, she secretly raised her and took her in as her disciple. Lu Xian had two disciples. One of them was Shan Lingyun, and the other was Lu Huanyu. Lu Huanyu was once Huxley's #1 genius, and he was extremely talented in the spiritual speaker technique. After he found out about Shan Lingyun's background, he was very sympathetic towards Shan Lingyun. Thus, together with Lu Xian, he hid it for Shan Lingyun. Shan Lingyun grew up day by day. It was unknown if it was because of her special body constitution, but when she reached the age of 8, her body stopped growing. She always looked like a little girl. Although Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu tried their best to hide Shan Lingyun's background, it was still discovered in the end. The entire Huxley was alarmed. In order to protect Shan Lingyun, Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu betrayed Huxley and brought Shan Lingyun to hide from Huxley's pursuit. However, Huxley was too strong. Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu were exhausted from chasing after him. In the end, in order to protect Shan Lingyun, Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu became bait and lured away Huxley's pursuers. Shan Lingyun indeed escaped from Huxley's pursuers, but Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu's whereabouts were unknown. No one knew if they were alive or dead. Gui Jing was Lu Huanyu's best friend. She had a close relationship with Lu Huanyu. Back then, after Lu Huanyu handed Shan Lingyun to Gui Jing, he left without hesitation and never returned. Speaking of the past, Gui Jing was full of emotions. Her eyes revealed a look of reminiscence. Later on, in order to find Lu Xian and Lu Huanyu, Shan Lingyun used the spiritual speaker technique many times, but it was to no avail. As she used the spiritual speaker technique too many times, she did not have much lifespan left. She promised me that she would not use this technique again. However, I did not expect that she would use it again for you, her new disciple. She is really. Speaking of this, Gui Jing let out a long sigh. Her face was full of helplessness. On the other hand, Zhuowen was silent for a long time. He did not expect Shan Lingyun to have such a tragic past. He also did not know that Shan Lingyun had used the spiritual speaker technique many times, and her lifespan had been severely depleted. Chapter 3967. Gui Jing looked at Zhuowen silently. His eyes were filled with sorrow. He shook his head and said, "You don't need to know about this. I don't think Lingyun wants you to know either." Zhuowen said with determination, "How much lifespan does my master have?" Seeing the determination in Zhuowen's eyes, Gui Jing was moved. He thought for a moment and said, "Before she used the great speech spiritual spell on you, she should have a few thousand years left." Zhuowen trembled. According to Gui Jing, using the great speech spiritual spell would consume 90% of one's lifespan. This meant that Shan Lingyun only had a few hundred years left. A few hundred years was just a snap of the fingers for cultivators with long lifespans. Shan Lingyun only had so little lifespan left. Zhuowen felt ashamed and sorrowful. "Senior, is there any way to save my master's lifespan?" Zhuowen suddenly asked. Gui Jing had a complicated look. He thought for a while and said, "I remember that Huxley has a supreme divine medicine that can increase a cultivator's lifespan by at least 100,000 years. If Lingyun can obtain an additional 100,000 years of lifespan, then with her talent, her cultivation level will increase steadily within 100,000 years. Her lifespan will also increase slowly as she breaks through her cultivation level." Gui Jing looked at Zhuowen and shook his head. "You don't have to think about this divine medicine. You have no chance of obtaining it. After all, this is one of Huxley's most precious divine medicines. Many people in the clan don't even have the chance to use it, let alone an outsider like you." Hearing this, Zhuowen was delighted. He didn't expect Huxley to have such a heaven-defying divine medicine. It seemed like he had to go to Huxley in the future and find a chance to obtain this divine medicine. Of course, with his foundation, he couldn't snatch it. However, he could use other things to exchange for it or use other methods. After all, Shan Lingyun still had a few hundred years. In these few hundred years, Zhuowen's cultivation might improve further. By then, even Huxley might not be his match. Looking at the expression on Zhuowen's face, Gui Jing could also guess what Zhuowen was thinking. She couldn't help but shake her head. She secretly thought that Zhuowen was too naive. Could it be that he really had designs on the boundless longevity divine medicine? For the next period of time, Zhuowen stayed in the valley. As Shan Lingyun was in a coma, Zhuowen had to stay behind to take care of her. On the third day, the white-haired young man left the valley because of what happened in Shenzhen. After interacting with Gui Jing for so many days, Zhuowen finally found out about her identity. Gui Jing was actually the sect leader of Hanwu Shenzhen. She had a high position and was considered one of the top experts even in the Liyuan main region. However, Zhuowen wasn't too surprised. The fact that Gui Jing could appear by his side without anyone noticing had already proved that she was stronger than Pei Shanglong. Pei Shanglong was one of the 10 elders of Hongwu Shengzhen. Her position was extremely high and was only below the sect leader. If someone was stronger than Pei Shanglong and belonged to Hongwu Shengzhen, it could only be the sect leader of Hongwu Shengzhen. While taking care of Shan Lingyun, Zhuowen had been studying the information that Shan Lingyun had sent to him. The information that Shan Lingyun gave him was a map. He only knew that the map was a mountain called the Seven Emotions and Six Desires Mountain. As for which region of the 100 domains this mountain was in, Zhuowen didn't know. However, he knew that since he knew the exact location, it wouldn't be that difficult to find out the exact location of the Seven Emotions and Six Desires Mountain. At least, it was much better than searching for a needle in a haystack by Zhuowen. After a month, Shan Lingyun finally woke up. Shan Lingyun opened her eyes and immediately saw Zhuowen, who was sitting by the bed and cultivating. Her eyes were filled with gentleness, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Zhuowen seemed to have felt something and slowly opened his eyes. When he realized that Shan Lingyun had woken up, he was very happy. "Disciple, how long have I been unconscious?" Shan Lingyun slowly propped herself up and looked at Zhuowen as she asked. Zhuowen helped Shan Lingyun up and leaned her petite body against the side of the bed. He said, "A month. I've been unconscious for so long, I still underestimated the power of the big word spirit art. Luckily, I'm fine now." Shan Lingyun stretched and looked at Zhuowen mischievously. She said, "Disciple, are you very happy now? I've helped you find the location of your little lover." Zhuowen smiled bitterly. He looked deeply at Shan Lingyun and felt bitter in his heart. Even until now, Shan Lingyun hadn't told him the huge price to pay for the big word spirit art. Zhuowen knew that Shan Lingyun didn't want him to worry and deliberately didn't mention this matter. "Thank you, Master. If not for you, I don't know how to find Wushang. However, I only know the exact location now. As for which region it is in, I still don't know." Zhuowen said. Shan Lingyun said, "I remember that in Hongwu Shengzhen's Hall of Records, there's a complete map of the 100 outer regions. However, this map is extremely precious and is in the depths of the Hall of Records. Ordinary disciples don't have the right to come in contact with it." Zhuowen looked at Shan Lingyun and wasn't disappointed. Instead, he smiled and said, "Since Master deliberately mentioned this Hall of Records, I think Master should have a way to let me look at this map." Shan Lingyun rolled her eyes at Zhuowen and said, "I wanted to give you a suspense, but you actually exposed me directly. As a master, I don't have any dignity at all." Zhuowen was a little amused and pretended not to know. I'm only an outer sect disciple. I don't have the right to enter the depths of the Hall of Records. What should I do? Master, help me." Shan Lingyun rolled her eyes at Zhuowen again and snorted, "Hypocrite." Although Shan Lingyun said this, she still revealed a proud smile and said, "Master is very resourceful. It's naturally no problem for me to help you enter the depths of the Hall of Records." As she spoke, Shan Lingyun took out a token and passed it to Zhuowen. Zhuowen took the token and realized that the token was overflowing with light. Its surface was pale gold, and the word Shan was engraved on the front of the token. "This token is my identity token. With this token, you can enter and exit all the forbidden areas in Hongwu Shengzhen as you wish. No one will dare to stop you." Shan Lingyun said proudly. Zhuowen looked at the token in his hand and was extremely excited. According to what Shan Lingyun said, if he held this token and entered the dungeon where Hong Shenwu was imprisoned, wouldn't he be able to enter without any obstructions? There was no doubt that this token was of great significance to him. Chapter 3968. Zhuowen stayed in the valley for a few more days until he was sure that Shan Lingyun was fine. Only then did he leave the valley. When he returned to Hongwu Shengzhen, Ziling and Li Xinbing came to him excitedly. Elder Pei has been looking for me. He wants to promote me to an inner disciple. Zhuowen looked at the two girls in surprise. Ziling and Li Xinbing brought him news that Pei Shanglong was looking for him again and wanted to promote him to an inner disciple. He wanted him to participate in the upcoming 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. Brother Daowen, you probably don't know yet. You're now a big celebrity in the sect. Everyone knows who you are. Ziling said excitedly. Zhuowen looked surprised and said, "Why do you say that? More than a month ago, you killed the #1 inner disciple of Qingyuan Shengzhen, Mo Hongxian, in one move. This matter is widely known in the sect. Mo Hongxian defeated all the inner disciples of Hongwu Shengzhen in our sect. He was invincible and made all the disciples in the sect unhappy. Qingyuan Shengzhen was also extremely arrogant and thought that Hongwu Shengzhen was invincible. But you killed Mo Hongxian in one move. It can be said that you helped many disciples vent their anger. Now you're famous in the sect," Li Xinbing said with a smile. Zhuowen suddenly understood. So it was because of this matter. No wonder Pei Shanglong looked for him and wanted him to participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. He wanted him to win glory for Hongwu Shenzhen in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was not interested in the 4th Shenzhen martial arts competition and being an inner disciple. The reason why he wanted to join Hongwu Shengzhen was not to become a high-ranking member of Hongwu Shengzhen, but to save Hong Shenwu. Once he saved Hong Shenwu, he would immediately leave the Hong martial sacred sect. He would not have any lingering feelings. "Junior sisters, did Pei Shanglong ask you two to come and persuade me?" Zhuowen asked. Li Xinbing and Ziling looked at each other. They didn't see any excitement in Zhuowen's eyes. Could it be that Zhuowen wasn't happy at all about being promoted to an inner disciple? "We are only outer sect disciples. How could we possibly come into contact with Elder Pei?" Elder Pei was the one who spread the word. "We've heard the news and are here to inform you. I think Elder Pei will know about your return very soon," Ziling said. Zhuowen shook his head. "I'm not the least bit interested in the inner disciples and the 4 Shenzhen martial competition. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Elder Pei." After saying that, Zhuowen greeted the two girls and went straight to the Ancient Records Hall. Since he had obtained Shan Lingyun's identity token, the Ancient Records Hall no longer had any restrictions on him. He couldn't wait to go to the Ancient Records Hall to check out the map of the 100 territories. When he arrived at the entrance of the Ancient Records Hall, two young cultivators suddenly blocked his way. "What's the matter?" Zhuowen looked at their attire and discovered that they were both inner sect disciples. "Junior brother, is your name Daowen?" A tall, thin young man looked at Zhuowen with bright eyes. Zhuowen smiled and said, "Did Elder Pei send you guys here?" "Yes. It seems that you are Junior Brother Daowen. More than a month ago, Junior Brother Daowen's magnificent feat at the entrance of the sect has spread throughout the outer and inner sect," the tall, thin young man said with admiration. The other young man, who was shorter, said, "Elder Pei is fond of talents. He thinks that with Junior Brother's talent and strength, it is a waste of your talent to stay in the outer sect. Therefore, he specially sent us here to let Junior Brother join the inner sect. He has already prepared the inner sect identity token and clothes for you." Zhuowen shook his head and said, "Senior brothers, have you finished talking? If so, please let me pass. I still have to go into the Ancient Records Hall to read some information." The two young men's faces stiffened. They didn't expect Zhuowen to be so calm. Wasn't it a good thing to become an inner sect disciple and be valued by Elder Pei? Junior brother Daowen, you may not know Elder Pei's identity. He is one of the 10 elders of the Hanwu Shengzhen Hall. His position is only below the sect leader. He is a real big shot in our sect, the tall, thin young man emphasized. Zhuowen couldn't help but shake his head. He ignored the two young men and stepped into the ancient records hall directly. As he had Shan Lingyun's identity token, he entered the ancient records hall very smoothly. Moreover, the disciples guarding the door looked at him with great surprise. After all, Shan Lingyun's identity token was extremely precious. If he wasn't close to Shan Lingyun, he wouldn't have such an identity token. The two young men were stunned when they saw Zhuowen's back as he entered the main hall. They really didn't expect that there would be such a stubborn guy in this world. They had already emphasized Pei Shanglong's strength and extraordinariness, but this guy wasn't moved at all. "Let's go back and report to the elder," the shorter young man said. The tall, thin young man sighed. He knew that the two of them had failed to contact Zhuowen this time. The ancient records hall was extremely large and could be described as spacious. There were huge bookshelves that were dozens of feet high. Every bookshelf was filled with ancient records, including divine powers, secret skills, alchemy books, array books, and various other ancient records. Moreover, as one went deeper into the ancient records hall, the levels of the various ancient records were also higher. It could be said that the collection of ancient records was quite abundant and immeasurable. Zhuowen's eyes were bright. His alchemy skills and array Dao hadn't improved for a long time. They were basically still at heaven-breaking level 4. In the ancient records hall, Zhuowen saw many alchemy books and array books that were above heaven-breaking level 4. He even saw heaven-breaking level 8 array books and alchemy books. Alchemy books and array books of this level were extremely precious in the outside world. Many cultivators would fight over them. However, they existed in Hanwu Shengzhen. It could be seen how deep Hanwu Shengzhen's foundation was. After secretly memorizing the alchemy books and array books that he fancied, Zhuowen entered the deepest part of the ancient records hall. He planned to take a look at the ancient record that recorded the map of the 100 territories outside the world. In the end, Zhuowen found the ancient record of the map at the top of the largest bookshelf in the deepest part of the ancient records hall. This ancient record was very thick. The entire book occupied a row of the bookshelf. Zhuowen gently took down the ancient record and slowly opened the first page. Suddenly, the first page surged with rich divine light. In this divine light, there was a lot of complicated information. This information was constantly outlined and intertwined, finally forming a map. Chapter 3969. It had to be said that the territory of the 100 Outer Realms was indeed vast and boundless. Zhuowen's reading speed could be considered extremely fast, but he had only flipped through 1/5 of it after 3 whole days. There was still 4/5 of the map that he hadn't seen. However, Zhuowen was very patient. He carefully examined the contents of the map. While Zhuowen was seriously reading the map in the ancient records hall, Pei Shanglong couldn't wait any longer. Seeing that the 4th Shengzhen martial competition was about to begin, Pei Shanglong finally came to find Zhuowen in person. After Pei Shanglong entered the Hall of Records, he caused a stir. Many of the disciples who were looking through the records in the Hall of Records looked at Pei Shanglong with reverence. They were puzzled in their hearts as to why an elder of the 10 halls like Pei Shanglong would need to enter the Hall of Records to look through the records personally. However, when everyone in the hall saw Pei Shanglong walk straight to Zhuowen in the depths of the hall, there was an uproar. Although they didn't know Zhuowen, he had attracted the attention of most cultivators in the past 3 days. This was because when this guy entered the ancient records hall, he didn't look at divine abilities or secret techniques. Instead, he focused on reading the map of the 100 Outer Realms. This behavior was extremely strange in the eyes of most disciples. This was why Zhuowen was noticed by them. Now, when they saw Pei Shanglong take the initiative to walk towards Zhuowen, they were all guessing whether Zhuowen had offended Pei Shanglong or not. There were even some who were gloating in their hearts, secretly thinking that Zhuowen was going to be unlucky. However, when everyone saw Pei Shanglong walk to Zhuowen's side, he didn't reveal a stern expression as they expected. Instead, he silently stood beside Zhuowen and didn't disturb him. It was as if he was waiting for Zhuowen to finish reading the map. Everyone was stunned. Everyone could see that Pei Shanglong did not seem to be looking for trouble with Zhuowen. Instead, he was waiting for the latter to finish watching. This made many disciples wonder just what kind of identity Zhuowen had to make Pei Shanglong, an elder of the 10 halls, be willing to wait for him and not dare to disturb him. Zhuowen seemed to have sensed something. He slowly turned his head and looked at Pei Shanglong, who was standing beside him. Pei Shanglong stared at Zhuowen and revealed a faint smile as he said, "You're called Daowen, right? Do you mind if I sit beside you?" Although Pei Shanglong was asking for Zhuowen's opinion, he did not wait for Zhuowen's reply and sat down. "May I know why Elder Pei is looking for me?" Zhuowen silently looked at the old man in front of him. Of course, he knew why the old man was looking for him. Elder Pei did not mind Zhuowen asking the obvious. Instead, he said with a smile, "Daowen, your strength is very strong, and your talent is also very good. I want to take you in as my last disciple." Finished talking, Elder Pei looked at Zhuowen with a smile. He was an elder of the 10 halls. His status was honorable, and his status was lofty. God knows how many people wanted to break their heads to become his last disciple, but failed. In Pei Shanglong's view, he personally invited Zhuowen to become his last disciple. The latter would definitely be overwhelmed by the favor and accept it. But what surprised him was that Zhuowen just glanced at him indifferently and said, "Elder Pei, I appreciate your good intentions. I feel that my current position is very good. I don't want to torment myself." Pei Shanglong's brows furrowed slightly. He also did not expect that Zhuowen would actually refuse his invitation. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Many disciples begged for it, but could not get it. "Daowen, are you sure you don't want to consider it more?" Pei Shanglong asked somewhat unwillingly. Zhuowen shook his head and did not answer anymore. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at the map of the 100 outer regions in his hand. Pei Shanglong's eyes revealed a trace of annoyance. This Zhuowen was also seriously a little too rude, right? Was this ignoring him? However, this place was the records hall after all. He naturally did not dare to act rashly without careful consideration. Pei Shanglong endured his rage and said in a solemn voice, "Daowen, the 4th Shenzhen martial competition is also about to start. When the time comes, you replace the outer court disciples and participate in the 4th Shenzhen martial competition this time." Pei Shanglong's tone, this time, could not be said to be good. It was even somewhat unkind, completely a commanding tone. "Not interested." Zhuowen did not even raise his head as he opened his mouth and said indifferently. Pei Shanglong was really seething with anger. This bastard, rejecting his good intentions time and time again. Did he really think that his temper was so good? Humph! Daowen, you're really something. You take care of yourself. Pei Shanglong snorted coldly, got up, and left the records hall. Many of the onlooking disciples in the hall revealed expressions of disbelief. Although they were unable to clearly hear the conversation between Zhuowen and Pei Shanglong from the conversation between Pei Shanglong and Zhuowen, Zhuowen did not even raise his head, and in the end, Pei Shanglong even left the records hall with an ugly expression. They could completely guess the specific conversation between the two. Without a doubt, Zhuowen, this fellow who wore outer court disciples' clothes, was actually arrogant to such an extent. An existence of Pei Shanglong's level personally came to find him, but this fellow actually ignored him. This fellow wanted to ascend to the heavens. Many people secretly shook their heads in their hearts. They felt that Zhuowen simply did not know what was good for him. He actually offended Pei Shanglong. Wasn't this courting death? Zhuowen naturally would not care about the thoughts of these bystanders. He still silently looked at the map in his hand, under Zhuowen's tireless search. Finally, on the 10th day, he found the map of the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires mountain. What surprised Zhuowen was that the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires mountain was actually in the Nuwa realm. Moreover, it was an extremely mysterious forbidden area in the Nuwa realm. It's actually in the Nuwa realm. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He was not unfamiliar with the Nuwa realm because the Nuwa clan was the ruler of the Nuwa realm. When Moyan Wushang was in the lower realm, becoming a desireless person was actually indirectly related to the Nuwa clan. Later, the experts of the Nuwa clan even wanted to take Moyan Wushang away. Zhuowen did not expect that the 7 Emotions and 6 Desires mountain was actually in the Nuwa realm. Zhuowen was a little worried that if Moyan Wushang's whereabouts were exposed, he was afraid that he would be discovered by the Nuwa clan and be taken away. However, Zhuowen also thought that the Saint Lord of 7 Emotions and 6 Desires that Moyan Wushang had obtained was extremely extraordinary. The place of inheritance should not be so simple. The chances of Moyan Wushang being taken away by the Nuwa clan was not very high. After the matters here are settled, I will go to the Nuwa realm. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. In the Hushu realm, he still had many things to deal with. In addition, his strength was not enough. Therefore, Zhuowen planned to completely settle the matters here before going to the Nuwa realm.